Hello, fellow dribblers. Welcome back to the Esky. I came prepared this week.
So for those listening, Sean has put on some kind of glove to open his beer to make sure that we get the show off to a good start. And neither of us knew you were doing that. That's quite funny out of you.
That is very funny.
Okay, what have we got planned?
Welcome back, boys.
For tonight's show.
Welcome to On The Esky. A lot to talk about, especially in the cricket world. As a big shout out, I guess, to Pepsi was the one that got us onto this on the call, that no Tim Paine. He probably won't play in the Ashes. He'll stand down. That has come to fruition. We'll talk about that in a minute. And his replacement announced today as well.
Alex Carey, for those playing at home.
Yes. So lots of Ashes news to talk about. Lots of news in the cricket world. New Zealand and India has been going on. Then we'll cover some of the AFL Draft that happened last Wednesday. There's a whole heap of NFL football to talk about. The NBA's been... keep rolling on. Some LeBron news. Yeah, exactly. There's soccer. There's actually a quick story in the MLB that I whacked in there, which...
Love baseball on this.
Love baseball.
Love it.
We'll cover that. But F1, huge.
Yeah.
2 weeks to... two rounds to go and very, very close. But besides that, we took a week off last week as I just mentioned in the intro, a lot of shenanigans happened in between the last 2 weeks. So a lot of sports to talk about.
Yep.
We'll cover all of that and more. How's your week been, boys, so far?
Very good here. Down the south coast of New South Wales, Merimbula, beautiful part of the world. Summer is starting to roll in here in Australia. Some warmth, a little bit of golf. No good golf, of course, but got out there nonetheless. And, the wife turned 30. So a nice week for myself. How about you, James?
Yeah, well, first off, happy birthday to the missus.
Yeah. I'm sure she's listening.
Of course.
But
Every single
2 minutes
episode,
in, she's
right?
probably still around.
Yeah, no to grindstone, just working hard. Haven't been able to catch up on much sport, so keen to have a listen to what you guys have to chat about, have some input here or there, ready to get stuck into it.
Chase some facts for us. As always, there are timestamps down below under the video to skip ahead to whatever sports you want to listen to, because we do cover a lot in the probably 3 hours today. As always, consider subscribing, throwing us a like or commenting. We do love your feedback and your interaction, as always. And also there's an Instagram with some tasty memes occasionally from Jimmy on the end of the table. With that, I think we go to the top story that we talked about in the intro with cricket, with the Ashes. We have a captain. We have a former captain leaving. Peps, who's going to be the Australian captain?
It's going to be hot boy Pat Cummins. Although I was thinking, do you want to shout a beer or do you want to do this first?
Oh, true. I skipped it. Rusty, I've had a week off.
Yeah, week off.
Out of practice.
That's all good, mate. I look into Pat Cummins' blue eyes and I kind of get lost.
I was keen. I was so keen to talk about it.
Into, what time of the year it is, or, what my sexuality is. A lot of things come through my mind. But before we get to that, should we shout a beer?
Yeah, let's do a shout.
All right, let's shout a beer.
Monks, do you want to take it away? Who have you got?
I'll take it off this week. So I'm going to shout a beer, and he might need a straw as well. Vita Vea, D lineman for Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Nose tackle.
Big boy.
Yeah. So playing up against the Colts the other week, and in the second quarter, the offensive lineman probably got a little bit handsy, knocked his helmet up off his head. Chin strap came up above his nose, and then the lineman went straight through with his helmet and chipped and
knocked him out.
Yeah, Vita Vea's 2 front teeth. So he ran off the field, didn't realise that they'd been knocked out until he started drinking some water and couldn't feel his teeth there. And then
That's pretty fucked.
it's pretty crazy. I think, Sean, you mentioned that you watched the game. He was like just giggling on the sideline about the fact he had no 2 front teeth.
Not too fast.
That's it. So if the tooth fairy didn't come your way, Vita Vea, I'll send the beer fairy across and
a couple of straws
and ice that those 2 front teeth up. I believe he's got them repaired already as well. So he's all solid.
I reckon he would be able to crush some cans. To be honest. He is one of the biggest units in the NFL. So shout out to Vita Vea. Sean, who would you like to shout a beer this week?
I went with the Aussie, George Cambosis. Junior. He won the lightweight division, I believe.
Yep.
Or one of the lightweight divisions. He, in a boxing match against Lopez, who had all the belts, the underdog Australian that absolutely no one in Australia had been talking about or even mentioned.
Pretty quiet, not a lot of hype.
Everyone's on that zoo hype, so it's come out of nowhere in a really competitive match. Got the knockdown against Lopez. Did get the split decision. I think he's had 3 split decisions in a row go his way.
Yes.
So, impressive. We got to give a big shout out to the Australian lad for getting the win and being
unified.
Unified. I think the first unified Australian boxing champ. I think we've had a couple have won a few belts, but I don't think anyone's ever been unified. No
Australian's ever been unified.
No, I think like Mundine won the WBA. Like he didn't win any of the other belts.
Did Fennec ever?
Fennec's probably the only one I can think come to mind, and the Elders who, but I don't think either. Maybe Costa. Costa's probably the only one I could think of that went close. But
it's a little bit of work for you to do.
It is hard to do being a unified champ, especially with all the mandatories and the rematches that happen in boxing now. So, big shout out to him for doing that. Big shout out to Australian going in there as typical Australian underdog and getting the win through the split decision.
Many similarities to Alex Volkanovski, quite promising rugby league player growing up, had to choose between league and boxing or league and fighting in the Volks case, and it seems to have paid off. He's a unified world champion, and he's not that old. He is 28, so still in the prime of his career.
Oh.
George Cambosis hopefully can hold on to those belts for quite some time.
Yeah, well, if he fights like Holyfield, he can fight till he's 60, but in the prime
don't know about the standard there, but anyways, that seems to be the way.
He's going to have his mandatory rematch, I believe, with Lopez. I think that would be in the cards for them, so they're probably going to run that back in 3 or 4 months' time, I reckon.
Shout out to George. I will shout out your Brisbane Lions. They drafted a young bloke by the name of Darcy Wilmot. I think he went 16th, and they went to him via Zoom, and he had about 20 blokes sitting around there, all his best mates. They called his name, and there was a good old-fashioned stacks on with Darcy at the bottom of it. Possibly a little bit of underage drinking there. I'm not sure if everyone there was over 18. I did see a few beers, but how good, your mate's just gotten drafted, going to a club that, has been there or thereabouts the last few years, and all his best mates getting the fuck around him, to put it eloquently. So shout out to you, Darcy. Absolute scenes there in the AFL draft, and wishing him all the best with his first preseason as an AFL player.
Yep.
Yeah.
How'd we go? Any Aussies undisputed champs? Be pretty hard to find.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a look at it now. I might have to save it for the boxing session section.
We'll give you a couple of hours to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, I think we listed them. Like, we know Mundine wasn't, and our 2 biggest other Australian boxers.
Fennec or
Costa.
Yeah,
like the only ones.
The only off the top of the head.
Maybe 1 or 2 like very, very early, but outside, that'd be Fennec, I would have thought. But anyway.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, let's get drawn back in by the blue eyes.
Yes, that's right. Your mind doesn't drift far, but until it comes back to Pat Cummins, he will be the Australian Test captain for the Ashes and for the foreseeable future. Steve Smith will be the vice captain, and apparently does have the ability to set fields and have some input in decision making. And then Cummins will be, the media man to face our lovely Australian media, which loves to always support our Australian cricketers. Cockheads. So interesting. I think, no surprises here.
It was expected. We knew Cummins was being groomed to be the captain.
Indeed.
What I think the Steve Smith thing potentially came left field.
Yeah, it caught me a little bit napping. I thought Steve Smith had been blacklisted from being a captain. I hadn't kind of considered would they give him the vice, and it makes sense. He can field in the slips. He can set fields on the field. He can do anything tactical, and Pat Cummins can be the man to face the media and have the second most important job in this country in being the Australian cricket captain.
So what are your thoughts on, because I've got two questions here. One, Steve Smith after, Sandpapergate, the banning, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, of course, like you said before, the Australian media, cricket media especially, getting stuck into him. But you can't do that. He's a cheat, blah, blah. What do you think? I think he served his time. He didn't really do the crime. He allowed it under his leadership.
Look, let's be honest, they were all in on it. They're all in on it. There were three guys that got in trouble, but you can't tell me that there was only three guys that knew about it. Yeah, I agree. Served the time. Had to take time away from the game, had to take a long time away from being, in the leadership group. Obviously a big fan myself here of Steve Smith. I think he's done the time and deserves to have that vice-captain role. I'm sure our cricket enemies in the Barmy Army and, the Indian fans will have some kind of objection, but in my eyes, good on Steve Smith, and it'll be nice to see him there, having some input, which, to be honest, without being the vice-captain the last few years, probably has a fair bit to say when it comes to tactics.
So that was going to be my second question. Is Cummins end up going to be the pseudo captain?
I think he's going to be the media man. He's going to be the squeaky clean Tim Paine that was meant to be this clean cut good boy. Until recent events came to light. I do think that's kind of how it's going to be. It's going to be a 1-2 punch with Cummins facing the questions and Steve helping out a lot with tactical decisions on the field. So
you're not worried about the Steve Smith White anting of Cummins, of his leadership?
No, I think they'd be great mates. I think that they would put aside any kind of personal, egotistical kind of thinking and just want to win test matches and want to get Australia back to being a dominant force in all forms of cricket. So, no, I don't think those two blokes don't really strike me as that egotistical. Obviously hard to tell from the outside looking in. But yeah, I think it's a good fit.
They've played a lot of cricket together.
They've played a lot of cricket together. They'd be best of mates off the field. I like the decision.
So, final question on this bit of news. What were your thoughts on the line of questioning or investigation they did on Cummins pre him accepting the captaincy? Did you see that report about they digging for skeletons, essentially?
Well, they're doing little Twitter searches and,
Well, they're asking him direct questions. It's like, is there anything we should know about that potentially could come to light and affect your captaincy? Cricket
Australia, it's like, joining the Defence Force or something, being a special agent for ASIO or something. They got to really dig into your past these days, see if you got any after school detention when you're fucking in year 4. Like that is the world that we live in these days.
Yeah.
Look,
you got to ask the question.
Yeah. Who knows? Stuff that happens in private lives, should, in my opinion, stay kind of private. And if it does come to light, you make a decision. But that's the world that we live in now with social media and. You've got to, I understand where Cricket Australia's coming from, trying to cover all their bases there. But in my eyes, he's a fast bowling weapon. He's good looking. He's just had a baby, and he's going to come in as a first time captain and lead us to a 4-0 Ashes win.
Yes. Well, are you saying it's 4-0 because there's no Perth test?
I'm saying it's 4-0 because I think one will get rained out. La Nina, very green down here at the moment, a little bit wetter than usual. Yeah. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I'm going to use that segue and we'll come back to Tim Paine in a minute. What do you think of the potential no Western Australia test? It looks like McGowan, our best mate, is closing the borders for the new variant.
He's a fuckwit. I'm just going to say it. I really don't like bad-mouthing athletes that do jobs that hundreds of thousands of people try to get to and reach those elite areas. I'm not a big fan of bad mouthing them. This guy, dead set, he catch up with the rest of the world. And there's a whole argument with they allowed the AFL Grand Final to go ahead. What's the difference there?
Money.
But they'll be giving up a fair bit of money here too, you'd imagine. But anyways, for those that aren't in the loop. Western Australia's Premier Mark McGowan is not opening up the borders for this Perth test. It seems within the last few days that it will not go ahead in WA. The big question going forward is where will this Perth test go? Now, this is a can of worms. This is an absolute can of worms. Hobart and Canberra are two destinations that may be able to host, a fifth Ashes test.
Yeah, but are the grounds big enough? I think ends up being the question.
Not for the Ashes, is it? Is it? If this was Sri Lanka or the West Indies touring,
Easy.
Sure, cricket Tasmania, here's your test.
Well, I think weren't they going to play the Afghanistan test against?
Afghanistan was going to be in Hobart.
There you go.
So that's Cricket Tasmania's angle. They've obviously hosted a plethora of Test cricket. Our theatre of dreams, just up the road here, it hosts 15,000. Maybe you can get some extra seating in there to make it 18,000. They'll probably sell out every day. That's our push, Cricket Australia. I'm sure you're listening, to host the Ashes in Canberra at Manuka Oval.
Yep.
I think we have fucking Buckley's chance of that happening, but would love to see it happen. I think the word is probably giving a second test to Melbourne or Sydney and possibly making it a day-night one to spice it up a little bit.
Okay. Yep. Because, that was going to be my thoughts. They'll probably double up. Use one of the other 4 grounds they're already playing out.
Think of the money.
Yeah.
Think of the money. 100,000 people in the MCG. You'd want to repeat it. They generally sell out the first 3 days.
Well, that's the thing. So you got the 4th test already in Sydney. Would you have a double header in Sydney, or would you send it back down to Melbourne?
And that's a great question there, Jimmy. The other interesting thing here is Sydney tests always sell out like that because you've got the population being quite similar, but the ground holding half the capacity. Yeah. So this might be Cricket Australia just going, righto, let's give everyone in Sydney a chance and host just a back-to-back Sydney test. If I was a betting man, and I am, I think that's the most likely option is back-to-back in Sydney.
Yep.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they went back to Melbourne and try to sell a few more bums in seats. And go from there.
So if you're Cricket Australia and you actually want to give Australia an advantage, which ground would you pick?
Good question. Historically, we're not great in Sydney.
Is it the Gabba? Or?
Well,
we don't mention the Indians.
No, fuck it. We dominated them for 30 years. So well done to our Indian listeners. Getting that historic win at the Gabba in the last test match held in Australia, which is nearly a year ago. Think of that. That's an option to go back up to Brisbane. I'd say less likely. Less likely.
From the money perspective, no, I wouldn't think they'd take it back to Brisbane.
Like the Gabba's nearly as big as the SCG, so you kind of got to think of it that way. But look, money talks. We've learned a few things in our first year of podcasting here. I'm sure anyone sort of a little bit older and wiser could have said, you fucking idiot, always follow the money because that's the way that's going to go. But I'll say back-to-back in Sydney as the number one likely outcome and the second most likely going back to Melbourne.
Could they have a pitch ready back-to-back with a week in between?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, quite easily. They do drop-ins in Melbourne and just standard in Sydney. I don't think it would be too much of an issue getting a pitch ready.
Okay. So we go back to Tim Paine. We've got to finish that story off. As we mentioned, Tim Paine did take his leave of absence from cricket since his family's doing it tough, as they probably would, with the media hounding them constantly.
They're the real victims in all of this.
Yeah.
You feel sorry for Tim Paine, the cricketer. You feel sorry for his career, but him and his wife and his kids. That obviously she knew about it. They'd been through it 4 years ago. You try and heal, you try and get through it. People are human. Not condoning it, but that they've got to try and move on. And now it all gets front page of the paper, and everyone's fucking talking about it. And
it reminds me a lot of Matty Johns and his situation. For that story as well. But
how many times do you hear it? People's private lives are private, I think, for a reason. And again, not to condone what Tim did, but the real victims in all of this is him and his family and the lady involved for it to all be the talking point of the last few weeks. But and as we kind of speculated, we kind of thought we doubted that Tim Paine would be playing in this Ashes, despite staying
big ask, I reckon.
Staying in the squad after the initial news broke. It was nice to see JL after finishing his quarantine from coming over from the Emirates. Actually flew down to Hobart, spend a little bit of time with Tim. Make sure that his mental health is going okay.
Well, they both came in at the same time, didn't they?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So I think I don't know if they had any. No, because Paine would have been here the whole time. So
yeah, but when Buff was coach?
Yeah, sorry. Yep. Yeah. So when Buff got axed and JL got the top job and Tim Paine got the top job. Yep. They came in at the same time in that aspect. So, yeah, good to see. I think that's strong leadership from JL, who himself has been hounded by the media this year as well.
Both were on the chopping block, based on how the series would go. So, yeah.
Fuck the mainstream media. Listen to podcasts and unqualified idiots that drink beers and.
We'll get to Brendan Smith later. Anyway, so his replacement, we speculated potentially Philip P, potentially Inglis, potentially maybe Wade, but in the end they went with the known-ish commodity, and Alex Carey. He was probably our favourite.
For this. The last pod was 2 weeks ago, but I was quite confident in saying that Alex Carey will be the Australian keeper at the Gabba. And then I kind of looked at the numbers since saying that on the last podcast, and I kind of thought, well, maybe this isn't so cut and dry. He has struggled this year in the Shield.
So that was probably the big thing. Is like his overall Shield record's pretty good. His recent form, though, not so good compared to the other blokes, especially Philippi, who's, I think, fourth in runs in the Shield currently.
Yeah.
And then Inglis, I think he got like 70-odd recently in a Shield match.
Obviously been in the UAE riding the Paine essentially for the T20 World Cup. So can you pick a bloke that hasn't played any red ball cricket?
Did he play in one Shield match this week?
I think, just this week.
So I think he got one decent score in it, which puts him in the conversation. But then, of course, you got Matthew Wade, who's...
and it wouldn't have surprised me if they went Wade. He's tied and tested. Wow. He's
very chested.
He's tried and tested, if you will. But you kind of think maybe his red ball career is starting to come to an end.
Much older. Alex, of course, is 30, so you've got him at least for the next 5 years potentially as Australian wicketkeeper. And then when we talk about Philippi, by that point will be the same age as Alex is now. He'll be 29, 30.
He's a young bloke, Josh Philippi. He's got a lot of cricket ahead of him.
Exactly.
And Inglis a touch older than him. But yeah, I think the best man for the job got picked. I think it was Alex Carey. Should have been the front runner, and congratulations to him. He's played 45 ODIs for Australia, averaging 36, which is no mean feat. Despite that poor Shield record this year, I'm happy with the decision. I'm happy for Alex Carey, and looking forward to seeing what he can do next week at the Gabba.
Yeah, my preference is just purely because I like to build young talent over long periods of time. Would have been Philippi, because I could see put him in there making the wicketkeeper for the next 15 years. Your job set. But also he's got to play well enough to maintain that position, and bringing a young fella into probably the pinnacle of Australian Test cricket in the Ashes, maybe not the greatest idea. Yeah, so I can understand why they went with Alex Carey for that reason.
And the thing is with cricket, it's so late developing, especially for batsmen. Like you think of a guy like Mike Hussey, or even
Steve Smith.
Well, even if you want to go back to Adam Gilchrist, Gilchrist was 29 when he played his first test. Like you can be, so good in your early 20s, but you don't really hit your prime into your late 20s and even early 30s. Yep. So I think that's the argument against blooding a 24-year-old. As good as Philippi is, I'm glad they went with Carey, and hoping he can score some runs and have some immediate impact.
And I don't think we've got an answer yet. The Australia game will be end of day 2 today from memory. They're doing the 1st through to the 3rd of December with their 3-day inter-game match, which I don't think you're going to be able to find a stats for. You can try. Because we're still
got secret squirrels, is it?
Well, it's behind closed doors, I believe, because it's an internal one. So I don't think there'll be anyone allowed to view it.
Right.
So it depends if that maybe ups the level of competition for them.
What an impactful game for those guys vying for spots. Considering we've probably got nine spots wrapped up. There's probably.
And I think there's a preference for Harris for that 10, so you're probably down to Usman and Head for the finals five.
So but a bit of noise this week coming out of Shane Warne as well, who thinks that Mitchell Stark should get dropped for Jai Richardson. We've spoken about how well Richardson's been playing the Shield. He averages 13 with the ball or something like that.
Just different types of bowlers, though. That's the thing. Like he's more your Hazelwood and Cummins kind of bowler.
Exactly. Chip away. Yeah. Probably
you want your Stark in there as a big tall that can bounce it all over the place.
Exactly.
Throw a couple of rockets.
Throw a few at 154 at your fucking throat. Do you know what I mean? And
we know the Pommies don't like that. So
no one likes that. no one fucking likes that. And not to take anything away from Jai, I think he will play a fair bit of Test cricket. I do get the feeling that this is Shane Warne just trying to be a bit more of a talking head. That's his role now.
It's headline.
Yeah, he's an Australian Stephen A. Smith or a Skip Bayless, if you will.
He fell off his motorbike this week, and that made headlines. So
Big warning. Look, I doubt that Stark misses out, and Warney was saying Lyon is under pressure because he had a poor summer last year. I think that's more clickbaity stuff than anything.
Who's the second spinner we got in the squad? Is it Swepson? I think Swepson's in the Ashes.
Can you chase out that squad? I know Warney's been a big advocate for Mitch Swepson for many, many years. However, his Sheffield Shield record is not the best. I'm not sure if they got a second spinner.
I think it was Swepson in the 15.
In the 15.
When I looked at it earlier.
But what's he talking about? Like, all right, Nathan Lyon, took 11 wickets at 48 or whatever last summer against India.
He had a rough summer, but he's still got it.
He's the best off spinner in Australian history, and he's top 6 or 7 in wickets taken for Australians ever. I just can't see him being under any pressure. It is Mitch Swepson that is in that squad, and no disrespect to Swepson, but I can't imagine Nathan Lyon's job's under any pressure there. I imagine Shane just trying to get a little bit of media noise out there, a few clicks on some articles, and I can't imagine it being much more than that.
Yeah, Lyon will be first choice, and if they need some extra turning, they've got Labuschagne, or if they pick Head and Smith, they all can throw some rank turners down there as well if
Indeed.
they need be.
How about Wikipedia there? They have done Tim Paine absolutely dirty. He's in that Australian squad with the line through him. Rest in peace to our former captain and leader. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel for him, but that is the world that we live in.
Yeah, let's run through some Shield news to get us up to date on that, and because I think it was interesting. I'm pretty sure it was the Queensland South Australia game with Head and Usman essentially going head to head for that last position.
Head to Usman, if you will.
Yes, because Usman, I believe, was the captain for Queensland and actually sent SA back in, which gives Head more opportunity to score runs.
And you know what he did? He scored a ton.
Yes.
He scored a ton. But South Australia had to follow on, and Travis Head scored a ton there. Uzi did go out and won the game.
Yeah. Good quick 550 to win the game, though.
52 off 36 balls, if you do not mind. And also, as an Australian fan, great to see Marnus Labuschagne and Bryce Street, who is in that Australia A squad, making some runs. Queensland getting the bickies there. The big story outside of that was Carey not making many runs. This was obviously
2 and 3
played before the announcement, so that was kind of putting a bit of doubt in some people's mind.
Yeah, and I think he was late in 9 with a duck before that as well.
He's had an ordinary Shield season. Did make 100 playing grade cricket in Adelaide weekend before last. The other thing that came out of this game is they actually abandoned the play on day one due to a, in quotes, air quotes, unsafe pitch. Yeah. And Queensland fucking made 300. I think it was Chad Sayers was saying, I don't know how unsafe it can be when you make 300. So it's a little bit interesting there.
I think there's a bit of a damp patch which was causing a few balls to either stay down or bounce up. I think Labuschagne got hit in the head with one of them. So, up around the neck area.
Of course, but
he still hit 100. So who the fuck is?
Yeah, agreed. The other Shield game that's happened since the last pod was Tasmania and WA. Tassie getting a win here. Sam Whiteman, 176 not. He batted 3 and he was out there in the second over. and didn't get dismissed, so essentially carried his bat. But Tasmania able to get the bickies through some good batting from Caleb Jewell, who turned up, and Jordan Silk had back-to-back reasonable innings. And like that man we were talking about before, Jai Richardson, had himself another game. He took 7 in this one after taking 10 the week before, or the game before. Max, do you mind just bringing up the Shield wicket takers?
While you do that, I'll just mention in this game as well, who we mentioned before, Philippi did get another 50, so batting well, and Cam Green, who also will be picked in the Ashes team with another 50, has had a good Shield season as well. So he comes into the squad with a bit of form, which is good to see.
Great to see out of Cam Green. I've heard a few people questioning Cam Green, and
they were talking about Mitch Marsh, of course, because they have similar role and build, but they've already sent Mitch back, I believe, to play for Western Australia, so he will not be picked in the Ashes.
Yeah,
so
he's not in the squad. It'll be Cam Green, batting 6, you'd imagine. Jai Richardson, for those wondering, in 4 Shield games, has 23 wickets at an average of 13.4. It's actually Matt Kuhneman, the Queensland spinner, who has the most Shield wickets, but Jai Richardson is really stamping down the door there in terms of taking polls in the Shield this year.
Can you find me some Stark stats while you're there? You might need to do some scrolling.
Well, in the Shield, I won't find you anything. Do you want his...
He's played 1 game in the Shield this year.
I don't think so. Let's have a look. No, because he would have been overseas the whole time.
I thought he got 1 game in. Maybe I think of Cummins.
I think in Warney's post, he was kind of pointing out that Stark's numbers outside of the Adelaide test, the pink ball test in recent years, have been lacklustre. But I think, again, that's just all speculation. I think Mitchell Stark will be there next week at the Gabba.
Yep. So we covered Warney stories. The Marsh Cup has also been happening.
Yes.
What's been happening in that, Peppy?
Just quickly, the Marsh Cup, we had 3 games. New South Wales smoked the Vicks. They made 344. And how about this? No big scores, but every single person that batted, 9 blokes, they scored 20 plus. I don't know if I've ever seen that. It was the most, team effort that I think I've ever seen with the bat in that game. Tasmania played WA. WA made 294, a handy 294. Sam Whiteman was 79. He's in some pretty good nick. And good to see Ben McDermott making 133, steering Tassie to a 5-wicket victory. I'd imagine he will feature this year in at least the T20 team and possibly the ODI side. And then Queensland and South Australia right on fucking cue. Alex Carey makes 100. It was white ball cricket.
It is white ball.
It was white ball cricket, but
we know who's good at that.
Yeah, to settle possibly any kind of debate, he showed. Yeah, look, I haven't had the best Shield season, but look, I'm pretty fucking good. He made 100, but it wasn't enough for the South Australians. And another guy that shouldn't be discounted when it comes to talking about Test cricket going forward, Matt Renshaw. Often the knock around him was he scores a little bit slowly, the turtle they call him. I don't know if that has to do with his demeanour, his personality, he's a little bit withdrawn, or the way that he normally goes about scoring runs. Well, he looked more like a fucking hare than a turtle in this one. 156 not out off 109 balls. He went in at 3 for 38 with a bit of pressure on there. 15 fours, 5 sixes. Thanks for coming. Queensland win that one. That's about it for domestic cricket.
Yes. Yeah. So we need to talk about international Test cricket and the big match we've kind of been covering. Fighting for what we're going to call the number 1 Test spot in the world.
So the top 2 ranked Test sides.
Yes. India versus New Zealand. New Zealand in India for this is a 4-game series or 3 games.
I think they're just playing to 2.
2?
I think they're just.
Oh, that's right. They are playing 2, and they've played the 1. And we're going to call it the 3-game series. So the
World Test Championship just comes into it, doesn't it?
And then there being a very, very exciting draw. So India got off to a very good start, 345. I'll just give the scores quickly. New Zealand 296, followed by an India for 234, with New Zealand to chase on the last day to make about 280 odd with 9 wickets remaining. Went right down to the end. They had to hold on for, about 9 overs.
Yeah, that 10th wicket partnership of Rachin Ravindra and Azaj Patel. Ravindra in his first test playing in the subcontinent, trying to contain a red-hot Ravi Jadeja and Akshar Patel on a deck, which we're just watching at the moment, was doing plenty.
Turning everywhere.
Managed to survive and get the Black Caps just home to save the match there. A few big stories out of this one. Virat Kohli opted not to play, stating kind of some mental and physical fatigue. I suppose fair enough, you know, coming off an IPL, coming off the World T20 World Cup, and then into this series here. So decided not to play, and there was no Rishabh Pant either in this one, which gave Ajinkya Rahane the captaincy and gave Shreyas Iyer his first Test cap. We've obviously seen what he can do in white ball cricket, a staple in the IPL for a few years now, and has some quite good numbers playing white ball cricket for India.
Had good numbers in this.
He had a perfect debut, didn't he? 105 on Test debut, every boy's dream, and actually top scored for him in the second innings with 65. So that begs the question now. You can't drop a bloke after a performance like that, could you?
Well, we've seen the Indian side. They are cutthroat.
They are.
They'll pick their best, and I think you can't leave Kohli out for a debutant. Let's put it that way.
Of course. Kohli will come back in, and if Pant is good to go, he will come back in. My thinking perhaps is they'll bring both bats in, drop Ravindra Jadeja down a spot, and maybe omit a bowler. Could that happen tomorrow?
Well, we saw, was it Sharma Jadi's finger?
Finger, but
so maybe, I'm thinking maybe rest him.
But he bowled a lot. He didn't seem too fast.
For the fast bowlers, he bowled a lot, 15 overs.
That's what I'm thinking. The fast bowlers barely got a look in the second innings, as they rarely do in the subcontinent. My thinking perhaps is they go one less quick, and Shreyas Iyer keeps his spot.
Yep.
Kohli comes in, and if Pant's good to go, he replaces Saha. That would be my tinkering with this Indian side. But it'd be interesting. A bloke that's gone out there on debut and scored 170 runs across his two knocks to get left out. The only other thing they could do is push Pujara up to open and then drop one of the openers, which I could see happening. Pujara obviously has played a shitload.
But who's there at the moment? So Gill, I think, played.
Gill and Agarwal.
Yeah, I think Gill scored all right in this, and Agarwal, not massive, but he made double digits. So
Agarwal made 13 in the first, and he made 17 in the second, whereas Gill made 52 in the first and then 1 in the second. I'm really spitballing here. I don't see Pujara batting anywhere else than 3, but I think it would be very rough on Shreyas Iyer to miss out on that side.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyways, we'll know in about 24 hours, I guess, for this second test. And how good is cricket that we can talk about a scintillating draw. A few good memes getting around, regarding the sort of the last session. There was probably 7 under the bat, 5 blokes with the lid on, trying to clean up that Kiwi tail. And, it's a bit like bowling to Nan on Christmas Day. You just get everyone, crowded around, or, your little brother, or, someone that you can really bully, maybe with a taped up tennis ball, and get plenty under there. So,
there was plenty of turnout here in India, as there always is. So the spinners, what do they bowl, 90 odd of?
There was 98 overs, and they bowled
70 odd, I reckon.
So Yadav bowled 12 and Sharma bowled 7. So the quicks bowled 19 out of 98.
Yeah. So almost 70 for the spinners. So. Again, and it showed, it turns. And
again, going back to what I was talking about before, can you go into a test with one quick? Well, I don't know. This will be
can one quick bowl 19 overs?
Probably. So we'll see what happens when they pick the teams tomorrow. But it'd be very stiff, I would think, to Shreyas Iyer to lose his spot.
So what do we think of this series so far? We've got New Zealand. We've got this first draw. So I guess whoever wins the next match will be the winner of this series.
Yep.
If we include the July game. New Zealand still technically won in front. Have we seen a clear kind of winner for number one test team in the world?
Well, so far it has to be New Zealand. They won the game that counted on neutral venue. Sure, it maybe suits their style of play better than playing in the subcontinent. And then they've held their own in that first test in the subcontinent with a bunch of young players. So, look, at the moment, you'd have to score New Zealand ahead. That they're the one that have the trophy. But it will be an interesting second test here to see what happens, when the likes of Coley and Punt, come back into the side. But as it stands, you have to have New Zealand ahead.
Well, we talk about it in the UFC all the time. You've got to beat the champ to be the champ. So.
You got to beat the champ to be the champ, Marks, and that is exactly right. So, be a fascinating second test match there in Kanpur.
So, to finish off on the cricket segment for today, what are some of the other matches? We've got Sri Lanka taking on the West Indies. Is that one-day matches?
First test.
Low-scoring first test then. That's what's confused me.
First test, Sri Lanka won by 187 runs. The captain, Dimuth Karunaratne, had an absolute game. Captain's knock, 147 in the first and 83 to get him the man of the match. And the second test is already 4 days in. Sri Lanka leading there.
Where are they playing that? In Sri Lanka?
The second one's Colombo. So Sri Lanka really looking in a positive situation there to take out that series. And Pakistan and Bangladesh are doing battle in Bangladesh. Pakistan won the first test by 8 wickets in Chattergram. I still think that would be a really good name for an app, perhaps on your phone. Chattergram, kind of like a WhatsApp, kind of Instagram, kind of shindig there. Abid Ali looked good for Pakistan with 133. And in a losing side, Taiju Islam, 7 for 160. 7 for 116, and Shaheen Shah Afridi continuing that good form off the T20 World Cup, 5 for 32. The second test starts on Saturday in Dakar.
Yep. So with cricket done, we're going to stay local with our sports before we jump into the NFL. We're going to quickly run through the AFL Draft. It happened, was it last Wednesday or the Wednesday before?
Last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday. Yep. Wasn't too many surprises early on as expected. With the way we thought some of the father-son picks and the matching of picks and stuff would go. But there was plenty of mullets and plenty of shit mows. Not as
I
good
wasn't at the draft.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, yours would pass as a good mow in comparison to some of these ones.
We were talking pre-show, and Monkey has been rocking this Caterpillar for quite some time now. And, yeah, I think yours would have been much, much better than these kids that are 13 years younger than you at the recent AFL Draft. But it's interesting how things come full circle. We're talking about, a few father-sons going in the top 10, but the 80s, vibe is definitely back. It was there was more mullets than salads. That is for sure in the AFL Draft. But alas, let's talk about what happened outside of haircuts and shit mows. Only 10 trades, so down quite a bit. There was 17 trades back in 2019, and I think the most telling stat for me was out of all the draftees this year, there was only 3 players drafted from the Allied States. In New South Wales, Queensland, and NT. The one New South Welshman drafted was Queanbeyan Tiger, just down the road. Josh Fahey, shout out to him. Yeah. The Victorians absolutely dominated, despite the NAB League getting canned from COVID this year, which was very interesting.
Well, they still had a lot of young boys coming through that
but hadn't been able to showcase their skills. There was a lot of chat that maybe that would, hamper them. So 7 of the top 10
how many of the other states actually played comps through the year?
So WA and SA both, I think.
Oh, well, true.
I think
so
both.
And they're the two other, massive talent pool or growth areas.
And they had 15. WA had 15 drafted, and South Australia had 12. And the most skillful South Australian player, everyone sort of tipped to go number 1, Jason Horne-Francis, out of South Adelaide in the Sandful, goes to North Melbourne with the number 1 pick. Watched a little bit of his tape. He's hard running. He's silky. He can go forward and kick goals. And that year of SANFL under his belt, I think, will make him a round one player for the Kangaroos. In the prelim loss that the South Adelaide Panthers had, playing against men, he had 24 disposals and 3 goals. I think he's ready to go. I think it is a big advantage for him to have a full year of footy under his belt against men, where a lot of the Victorian kids, as talented as they may be, haven't played much footy, and a lot of them haven't played against men. So I think Jason Horne-Francis will be one to watch this year. I think he'll make immediate impact.
Yep. And 2, we had Sam Darcy going to the Western Bulldogs. So
in a father-son pick there,
yep.
He's 8 centimetres taller than his old man who played, ruck in the 90s for the Dogs. And he's pretty versatile. So they've got Tim English. Mm-hmm. So most likely not going to go into the ruck unless it's maybe a chop-out kind of guy. He could play full forward. He could go centre-half forward. The thing is with young talls, young ruckmen, pretty hard to make an immediate impact. He's got a fair size about him for an 18-year-old, 93 kgs.
Yep.
He'll often need to hit the strong room a fair bit over summer and chuck on a few. Don't see him starting round 1. The Western Bulldogs, coming off a grand final appearance.
And like you said, they got Johnny English in front of him. So.
Johnny English, that's right. Shout out to Mr. Bean, Johnny English. But probably see Sam Darcy getting a few games under his belt this year. Someone who I think will play a fair bit of footy this year is Finn Callaghan. The GWS Giants are taking him 3rd pick. He's got that modern frame, that big, tall, strong inside midfielder, kind of like a Marcus Bontempelli or a Patrick Cripps, if you will. The 4th pick and arguably the most talented guy coming out of the draft being Nick Dacos. It was nice scenes to see him getting his name called for the club, where his old man Pete Dacos is a legend, and his older brother Josh has got a few games under his belt.
That's why I got confused. I was like, I'm sure I saw Nick Paine this year. It was his brother.
It was his brother. He may just be the most skilled player coming out of the draft. And Collingwood, by all reports, may have won this draft because they didn't actually have to give up. They didn't have to trade up too much to get their man in Nick Dacos. He kind of looks like a Zach Merritt that can just get bulk ball. Not a huge frame at the moment. He may want to chuck on a few kgs.
Yeah, it's 73 kgs. Yeah, you probably want him to get up closer to 80 like the other boys are. So.
But probably the biggest name to come out of this draft. I was having a look at the Instagrams. He's pushing about 50k followers, where a lot of the other boys were struggling for about 10. Look for him to play a fair bit this year. Pick 5 may have been the first surprise in Mac Andrew going to the Gold Coast Suns, the highest player ever drafted of Sudanese heritage, out of the Dandenong Stingrays. Some of his footage, man, destroying the other rucks that he was playing against, but then nimble on his feet for a big man, silky, used it well, athletic as fuck. The big question mark around him is he's listed as 74 kgs, so you can't imagine at 201 centimetres.
It's a pretty common thing for Sudanese players. Like it's
Marjack Dor, the bloke was like a brick shit house a few years into his career, but very, very lean starting off. But
you see the same thing when they go into the basketball, etc. as well. They're all very lean and thin to get early on, and get him in the gym, get him into the professional, weight room. Probably put on. Depends on how
30 kilo.
Maybe not. I was thinking 20. Like get him into that 95 range. Yeah, where you want. It's probably where you want him.
And I'm not saying in this off season, but I think in the next 3 years, exactly. He probably needs to chuck on about 30 kgs. But watching the way he moves for a man of his height, unbelievable. And the vertical leap on him, really quite impressive. Moving forward we'll just cover the top 10 picks and maybe these last 5 out of the top 10 reasonably quickly. Josh Rochelle goes to Adelaide from the Murray Bushrangers. He actually chose AFL over soccer. Had Melbourne City making a few phone calls, and his skills show it. He's been likened to Toby Green. which would, that's
Let's hope he's not a grub like Toby.
I was going to say
big time, big
football or
Well, I don't know about off the field, but look, he's a good-looking rooster with excellent skills, and Adelaide could definitely use a goal sneak that could have a run through the middle like himself. Josh Ward going to Hawthorn at pick 7. This is an interesting one because his great-grandfather actually played for the Hawks in the 1920s, and then since then, no family ties. He's a hard-nosed midfielder from Melbourne Grammar. I expect he will get some games straight away this year. And then Freo, we'll talk about pick 8 and pick 10 together. Fremantle, they had 4 picks this year, and they picked everyone out of Perth, out of WA. So I don't know if there's a little bit of salt in the wounds from the Adam Chera, homesickness, wanting to go back to Melbourne. If that was playing into it,
It's always a concern.
It's always a concern out west. So they went Jai Amiss, who is a sharp-shooting full forward. I think he kicked something like 51-15 or something this year over in the Waffle. And then Neil Erasmus, the South African-born, a very good cricketer by all accounts, inside midfielder, apparently strong, hard tackler, been likened to Jack Steele. So 2 really good picks there for Freo. And Richmond, you don't normally see Richmond with a high pick as of late, but they went with a key defender, Josh Gibkiss, out of Western Victorian Rebels, and he said himself in the interview that he likens his own game to Jake Lever. The funny story out of him is he actually topped out the vertical leap at the combine because they were doing it inside and they couldn't go higher. So he's got an absolute he's spring loaded, and maybe a little bit of a question mark around Richmond's tactics here. Richmond was actually the number 1 intercept marking team this year, and a pretty handy backline as is. But sometimes you just take the best guy available. So that's maybe the thinking there with Josh Gibkiss, and that rounds out the top 10.
Well, just while we're on Richmond, because of Dusty Martin in the news this week, of course, because he's back at training. Back doing light work, getting ready for the preseason or getting into the preseason for the Tigers.
Good to see.
So good to see after the laceration of the kidney. So.
Yeah, never a good time when organs are involved. Coming from a bloke that spent a week in intensive care after doing a spleen. You obviously want to be a little bit more cautious, I suppose. But yeah, Dusty will be ready for a big preseason, and he'll be rip roaring in round 1. I suppose the other big story there is his buddy Franklin Marks. He's back at preseason and looking. He's got his eyes on 1,000.
That's it. Yeah. So I don't think it was too much noteworthy news. I think it was just he was back in one of the first sessions, getting around all the new guys as well. Sort of showing them around the club and stuff. So yeah, I guess good to see him back and hopefully make that. Hit that 1,000th goal.
Should do it easy. He's what? He's 20 away?
No, not. I think he's like 7 away.
Very close, yeah. Just real quick back on Freo. Do you reckon they chose all WA players just because they could only get WA players in the state?
Good question.
McGowan.
They're allowed back over the border.
Our mate Mark McGowan.
Good point there, Mark.
Just kidding.
No, fuck him. He's a knob.
Fair. All right, let's stay local and cover some NRL news quickly, mostly around player movement. We'll probably save Brendan Smith for the end. Officially, the Dolphins have signed their first current NRL player. They have one other bloke currently signed, but he hasn't actually played any NRL games. But they did get a good one in Felicity Kafusi from the Melbourne Storm, second rower, plays for Queensland as well.
Plenty of Origin experience, one of the better back rowers in the league. Look, not that marquee signing, I suppose, in a Munster, or looking less likely being achieved.
Well, they're after Carrigan and Walsh as well, and both re-signed with their current clubs in Brisbane and the Storm.
Pat Carrigan coming off that ACL will go back and be the skipper for the Broncos in round 1. Don't worry, they'll have some cash to splash. There'll be a few big names heading up to Redcliffe in the near future.
Yeah,
But
which probably leads into the story about Brandon Smith, because supposedly he'd given guarantees and essentially was ready to go to the Dolphins, to the point that they pulled out of the Reed Marnie conversation, and the Reed Marnies ended up going to the Dogs. And now looking like Brandon Smith's going to the Roosters after said podcast, and then all the blow up from said podcast, too much swearing, too much chatter about piss up culture at the Storm, to, of course, shitting all over the Storm, saying how awesome the Roosters are. So looking likely he'll sign with the Roosters and go there. What are your thoughts on this, Peps?
around the drinking culture and
It's fucking NRL. Are you surprised? These boys were doing lines of coke after the grand final. Like, come on.
look, not condoning, not condoning it, but if it's news to you that rugby league players like to let their hair down when the season finishes and have a few drinks, then maybe fucking grow up. I've spoken about it before. If you want role models, let's look at some fucking poets or some politicians, a Nelson Mandela, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know where poetry came from. I probably couldn't tell you a poet. But what I can tell you is if you want some fucking role models for your kids, probably look outside of rugby league.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. He used some bad words.
Yeah, well, he said fuck 61 times in an hour podcast, and I think you've probably already covered that in our hour. So
I doubt it. I'll look back on that. I reckon I'm less than 61
give us a count.
We'll get the counter started on the YouTube video.
But also, it's 2021, and if you get your feelings hurt by a little bit of a F word, then maybe you need to grow up. That's my personal feelings.
You need to grow the fuck up.
The other thing,
we're getting cancelled now.
The other thing that I think is worth talking about is the chat about him saying, I want to be in a Roosters jersey whilst he's still contracted at the Storm. That's for me is more of the talking point here. Is that disrespectful to your teammates? Does it show lack of commitment to your current team?
Well, it depends. It depends what the question he was asked, and he's just being honest. Like, if the question was like, hey, we've heard you've been in Sydney doing the tour. What do you think of the Sydney clubs you've been visiting? And his answer is, well, I went to the Roosters. They are fucking amazing. I love the what they're doing there. Of the comparison to the other Sydney teams he's visited,
Yep.
That's a fair answer. And he probably knows what looks good because he's played at the Storm and played in a couple grand finals. So,
Yeah.
like it context matters, I think, in this point.
Sure.
So, and the Roosters have big name players go there all the time. How do you think they got Tedesco? How do you think they got Sonny Bill to come back multiple times? They can sell the club to players.
The sombrero.
So, yeah, exactly.
We'll go
A couple of Hiluxes, a couple.
Pass me that sombrero.
A couple Mercedes on the side, like it helps.
Look, and this is all allegedly.
Take the mullet off there.
Here we go.
I'll whack the
For
mullet.
those watching at home, that's how they do it. As a Dragons fan, I'm meant to hate them, but you have to admire what their front office does. They get the sombrero out and they lure big-time players. And, yeah, if I'm Brandon Smith and the Roosters are offering me somehow the same money that the Redcliffe Dolphins are offering me, where do you think I'm going?
Exactly. Like the Dolphins, if they follow the same trajectory as the Cowboys did or the Titans did when they came to the league, probably not going to be good for a couple of years. Hopefully,
can they follow the same trajectory that the Melbourne Storm did, who had immediate impact winning in their second year?
yes. So that's the hope, and they've got to also sign some more blokes before we get to that point. So we'll have to see what
They've
that
got a
answer
great
is.
coach, though.
Yeah, they do have the goat coaching him up there. But if you're looking for a comparable team, how about the Roosters, where they had a team of backups, so make it deep into the finals, like yeah, and with all the guys coming back healthy, and then where that squad looks like, playing with the spine, got Tedesco in there, Carey back there too.
Yeah,
so.
Carey being out this year, people kind of forget how good Luke Carey is.
Yeah, and then you tie him up with Brendan Smith, and he's going to play the full 80, like as if he wouldn't go there. They've got a good forward pack. You joining that. So hey, that's why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Agreed. And again, to reiterate, if the F word offends you, don't listen to podcasts.
So speaking of that, what do you think of? I think I saw a report about journos. Yeah, the Buzz Rothwells of the world, etc. Of course, all the chat of the negative chat coming from that podcast is coming from these blokes. And then they wonder why they don't get access to these players and why they're going onto podcasts to do these kind of interviews and be open, honest.
They can be candid. They can be honest. Yeah. Shout out to Bloke in a Bar, an excellent rugby league podcast. Yep. If you want to listen to anything about the NFL or off-season, I'd probably listen to us. But that's just my own personal opinion. But he gets shout out to Dan and Kemp. He gets big guys, coming in. He had Paul Vaughan, last week after the big scandal around, him this year, and get him in to talk candidly. They don't want to go in there and get grilled by
Buzz or some other
by some Daily Telegraph person. But when they can go in and talk candidly in modern media. So I don't know. Fuck the mainstream media. They're happy to lie. They're happy to propagate. They've
got their own agendas.
They're happy to fearmonger. We've seen over and over again with COVID. They're happy to, not let the truth get in the way of a good story, but as soon as you start swearing, you're the bad guy.
It's the old whites, as we like to talk about, come out, and the NFL with their taunting rules, etc. But anyway, it's bumhole league for a reason.
No, you know who the bumhole league is? Mainstream media. Get a rocket up, and that's the end of that story.
So let's finish up with the Dogs. So Gus Gould, hard at work, came out that Kickout is going to sign with the Dogs from 2023, finishing up with the Panthers.
We spoke about it last pod. There was a little bit of scandal, I suppose, about the leaked security footage with him, with Gus and Baz there. The funniest thing that has happened since then was the grand final parade weekend before last, and Jerome Luai's got his phone and he's just got Billy Army in the background just going, doggies. So a bit of a laugh between them. He's an excellent edge back rower, definitely top 5 at that position in the game. This Dogs team, leading me into the Reid Marnie signing of this time about a week ago. I was having a chat at work with a few of the boys and I was saying, tell you what, this Dogs team is looking unreal, but I'm just not sold on their spine. And then about 2 days later, the news comes out that Reid Marnie has put pen to paper with Canterbury Bulldogs, and they're starting to look like a legitimate force. I've got 2 questions, boys. How the fuck did Parramatta let him go? And with this signing of Reid Marnie, are the Dogs a top 8 or possibly top 4 team?
Well, they'll win more games than they have been. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
That's the safe bet.
You can't go the other way.
Agreed.
I don't think they're going to be any worse than they have been in the past.
Top 8?
Maybe.
I think on paper that they've got too much talent not to make the 8 next year.
Maybe a year away chemistry-wise. Mm-hmm. Maybe it takes them a year.
And some of these guys, like Kickout, won't be coming until 2023.
Exactly. They could be... I think they might be like 9th or 10th. I think they're going to have a sniff.
Okay.
But the Doggies will have a sniff. But whether they get in or not, we'll have to see. So
I think legitimately they'll be a top 8 side. I won't go as far as saying to go from wooden spoon to top 4. It's pretty unusual to do that. I think the Roosters have done that before. But, pretty unlikely to do that. But I'll back them in. Look, again, Dragons man, not a big fan of the Canterbury Bulldogs. Shout out to Andrew Burns, Jared Ross, some of my best mates. If you're listening, absolutely drive me up the wall with your fucking incessant chat after your team's been shit for many years. But in all respect to the Doggies, I think that they will find themselves climbing up the ladder this year and probably into the top 8 for mine.
Yep. Yeah, it's fair. So... on Para, because they didn't just lose Reid, they lost someone else. Well, I think they lost a couple other guys through the week as well.
What is going on? What is going on with that club?
I don't know. Well,
Reid Marnie was the most improved hooker in the NRL this year.
He's almost played for Queensland. Like, he was that close, barring a shoulder injury. So
pay the man. Pay the man.
I don't know whether they're just paying a couple of guys overs and they don't have the room anymore, or the guys are aware, like, maybe our window's not really that open and we need to go elsewhere. Maybe it's Brad Alpha, who knows? Gus, there's the Gus factor. Like, we're talking about the Roosters selling players on clubs. Yep. Gus, he though he may be not great on commentary and a a bit past it on the way that you probably prefer commentary to be had.
Yeah, really gives me the shits on when I listen to him commentate.
But he's still considered like a godfather in the rugby league space.
And there's a reason
the
for
boys
that.
respect him for
Yeah,
that.
there's a reason for that.
You look at Penrith, and though he's no longer there, he put the pieces in place to get to the point where they are now.
Yeah.
So, hey, that's not a hard sell for doggies and for players potentially going to the Bulldogs, especially when they're throwing good money at them.
Yep. The Gus father.
Yes. So, final bit of doggies news means they have spent a lot of money, and they may need to find a bit of money to keep them, propped up, under the salary cap. With Nick Kotrick looking like he could be on the move, potentially looked like he was coming back to the Raiders because Bailey Simonson's, I think, is signed elsewhere. So there is room as a direct replacement for Kotrick to come back. But a late entrant into that conversation was the Tigers, who themselves have their own NRL godfather and Tim Sheen over there helping them.
And they should have some money because they've every single big movement in the NRL they seem to miss out on.
Yeah,
so you'd think that they would have some money to throw around.
Well, it looks like they may lose Luai as well. Not Joey, the other brother. Or cousin.
Leilua.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So he could be on the move elsewhere, potentially going back to going to Parramatta as an option. Tigers should have lots of money to throw around. So whether if Kotrick wants to stay in Sydney and play for another shit team, or he comes back to and plays for the Raiders. And
what would you do? What would be the under-overs for you to choose the West Tigers over coming home?
It depends on the difference in money.
I'd want at least 150 grand more.
Easy
to go to the West Tigers.
Yeah. If the Tigers give me 800K a year and I think I'm a 600K player, I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm taking that money.
But in terms of your career, look, the Raiders were a little bit disappointing this year, but I still think they will bounce back fairly well in 2022. And coming home, I think he'd want at least 150 grand more to go to West Tigers.
Yep. And the Tigers like to pay overs, so it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up
especially
there.
for wingers as well. Like
because how old's Kotrick? Like he's
young,
26.
He'd be 23, I reckon.
Well, exactly. Like 3-year deal at Toggies, the Doggies, maybe 800K a year. Do that, and then at that point you're 26, 27. Come back to the Raiders, and then play the back end of your career at the Raiders.
Kotrick's 23.
Yeah, so easy. Make your cash and then come back and settle.
Want to be good cash to go to Balmain, I'd reckon.
Oh, big time. Fuck, let it go.
So,
how'd you go on Bailey Simonson?
Yeah, it looks like he is potentially signing with the Eels.
There you go.
Yeah, so going full circle there.
Yeah, because I think there might be a Ferguson replacement who's
off contract.
Off contract.
He was released.
Potentially going Super League of France, I think.
Yeah, let's look at rugby union.
Yeah. So, speaking of
James Seguiaro.
Yeah.
Seguiaro. There's something there.
The only bit of rugby news we've got, potentially talking about some kicking things, the World Cup for 2027 potentially coming to Australia. I don't think it's a done deal, but it's pretty close to a done deal is what I'm hearing. I can't remember if it's I think it's Brisbane. Is it Brisbane they're going to hold the World Cup? James, have you got any news there?
Well, they'd have it all around Australia, but...
as a base, as in it'd be Brisbane predominantly and then play a couple matches elsewhere.
What have you got on our favourite sport, rugby union?
Yep. So all I've got is World Rugby is hoping to award the bids for the 27 and 31 World Cup.
It's got a date on when that announcement may occur.
It says by May 2022, so sometime next year.
6 months. 6 months. I'll tell you what. We've spoken at length on this podcast about the demise of rugby union in this country. If there's anything that the ARU could get onto that may kind of boost a bit of popularity, a bit of TV viewership, a bit of fucking chat down the pub about rugby union would be landing a rugby union World Cup.
Yep.
Myself personally, big rugby league fan growing up, but I remember those 03, rugby union, Johnny Wilkinson. I remember those 07 World Cups when we were still kind of a force. I remember being intrigued by those World Cups, and then kind of in the last sort of
20 years.
No, I'd say 10. I'd say 10 where, the All Blacks just dominating and Australia not being able to really perform that well, it really waning interest in the sport of rugby union. So if there's anything that might grab the attention of the casual fan, it might be getting a home.
Do you know what they're going to do to this? They'll win this World Cup and then they'll put all the matches on Stan.
Probably. But
at
least it's here. Come on. If there's a game at
Canberra Stadium,
Canberra Stadium, we're probably not going to get Australia. But fuck, if we got, someone.
Anyone in the top four,
I'd probably go watch. I'd probably go watch South Africa. I'd probably,
You go watch England,
any game in Canberra.
You go watch England versus Argentina or some shit like that.
In Canberra.
Yeah. So by all reports,
if we got Namibia versus Georgia, I probably wouldn't go.
By all reports, Australia's the front runner to get that gig. That being said, it is either between. So the announced bidders are Australia, Russia, and the United States.
Oh, well, there's the counter argument. Growth of the game. Big audiences, possibly big money behind hosting, especially in the US, I reckon, college rugby is a thing.
It is a thing. Like I was thinking about it is a thing. Probably more so. But then Russia, with Europe as big rugby, and Russia being, of course, east of that. So whether that, I don't know much.
You'd hope for the state of rugby in this country that we are the front runners against Russia and the US, unless it comes to who's got more nuclear warheads or something. But in terms of who would be better off to host a Rugby World Cup, you'd hope it would be the land down under.
Yeah. Did it mention any location there, or just said Australia's front runners?
They've got locations. So there's a couple arenas in Sydney. Mm-hmm. They name pretty much everywhere. Brisbane, Perth,
everywhere. So it would be
a couple of Melbourne, Townsville, which would be all right shout.
Yep, they've got a good new ground up there.
Yep, they do have Canberra listed as well as Gold Coast, Newcastle.
They should.
Let's go Namibia versus Georgia 2027. I'll see you there.
All right, enough rugby. Let's talk about something we do enjoy.
Well said.
Let's get stuck into the NFL hour. So some NFL news. Thanksgiving weekend, of course, was very great. Lots of points. Bit less upsets than previous weeks, but there's still a lot of great games. There's a fair bit of news kind of leading into it. I think the Jets had all the COVID with their quarterbacks. A bit of player movement up and down. I think, what was it? Trey what's the corners? The Buffalo corner. White.
Tre'Davious
White did his ACL, which is a big injury for them. Mm-hmm. Speaking of injuries, probably the big one for the Panthers, and we got classic Cam Newton because of it. I'm back, baby. CMC did his ankle injury, had an ankle injury. He's out for the season. Was number one pick in most players' drafts. I think he was number one last year in most people's drafts as well. And then that kind of reverted Cam back to, was he 9 and 21, 2 picks, sat on the bench. That only lasted a week.
Man, you just feel bad for CMC. Like, so much talent. He played 3 games last year before, his injury. And then, what have we got, 7 games out of him this year? Had the hamstring injury, missed a bit, and now he's had this, lateral ankle sprain. I think when it happened, it was pretty innocuous. He played on, didn't seem that bad, and then he's had the scans. And it was hard done by trying to find out actually what the extent of this injury is. But by all reports, he's done for the year, and it's really been a horrible year for running backs. Obviously, Derrick Henry.
Well, I saw some stats. So of the running backs earning over 15 mil a year, all of them are injured. The only one that hasn't been, I think, is Zeke, and they're talking about resting Zeke. Like Kamara's missed a bunch of games, but I think he's going to be back.
He's potentially back this week.
But of course he's been injured. So, yeah, kind of leads to the point of the league's kind of that direction of get them in young, wear them out, get them in young.
They want them to play another game. Yeah. Extra game this season.
True, but
they need to pay him more. Why?
Well, that's the thing. The big second, because it's usually a second contract's your big one.
Mm-hmm.
Your big contract by that point is you have to be overly elite. But even if you are, it's very hard to skip that injury bug just because of the position you play. Like it's very much a young man's position. They get you in 3-4 years. We've got you got too much tread on your tires. Out you go. Second round pick comes in. We save money that way. We don't have to pay big cash, and then we've got fresh legs, fresh bodies to take those hits.
It's kind of sad to see, man. The NFL not for long.
Not at all. And you think about Henry, what he's done, and then now you worry about Henry with those kind of injuries. Like when I think about it, AP is probably the only modern guy kind of going around, still around, that kind of had that lasting effect of a 15-year kind of career at the position.
Like an old school running back.
Yeah, him, Frank Gore, they're the only ones that really come to name.
Frank Gore's a good point there.
But everyone else, it's...
What about, you think of a guy like Todd Gurley, 2-3 years ago, just about the best running back in football, and now...
Can't get a gig.
Doesn't have a job. It's
bad knees. They can't pay what he wants, and Well, you look at the Ravens. They had 3 different former Pro Bowlers from a couple of years ago
coming in,
and they're just rotating them out. They cut Bell a couple of weeks ago because he just wasn't doing enough, that's Bell's only been in the league 7 years? Like
if that.
The position seems to have the biggest cliff in terms of performance. Like. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah, over 30s. Like you look at over 30s and running backs in the league, there isn't many.
A few Frank Gore a few years ago. But
and AP. That's it. For guys getting jobs and actually getting carries, it's very, very light on. Like it's
indeed.
Hit a cliff and then off you go, and we'll get the next young guy coming out of college that's raring to go. So it's a very tough position. So speaking of which, AAP, of course, was waived by the Titans after 3 games. It looks like he's signing on to the practice squad for the Seahawks. It didn't look too bad, but I think he averaged 3 yards a carry or slightly under. And they had some younger fellas there that were doing okay.
Yeah, so saw Dontrell Hilliard having a absolute game last weekend, and Deonta Foreman's looking not too bad. But I don't know. It's cutthroat, isn't it? You're talking about a former NFL MVP, probably the best running back of this generation, and he lasts 3 weeks at the Titans before getting moved on.
So
talking about cutthroat as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
The Giants have fired their OC, Jason Garrett. Kind of expected. Of course, the head coach for the Cowboys formerly.
Fair few years as the Cowboys head coach.
Yeah, well, questions there of whether he had something over Jerry Jones, or Jerry Jones liked him because he was a yes man. Like there's a bit of that to it. As an offensive mind, probably a little bit past it. As a coordinator, is all the thoughts. Like all the chat on the Giants offense was it's pretty garbage from a play design, but it's also been a very banged up offense too. So
most of the year you haven't had Saquon Barkley, a number 4 pick overall in the NFL. They've barely had any receivers.
Yeah, I think their top 4 receivers are currently injured. So
I don't know.
Ingram's only just come back.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. You're expected to deliver week in and week out, and if you don't have your best chess pieces, how are you meant to do it?
Yeah, well, even still, I think they were probably looking for something more inspiring, and there was uninspiring football they were playing. So, easy neck to get rid of. Scapegoat, if you will.
I guess.
Save the judge for another couple of weeks. Hopefully, he can string a couple of wins together and save his season, because I think it's his first year there, isn't it, or second?
Monks will be able to chase that one
for
up.
The job judge.
I just want to go back to Jason Garrett. With his pedigree, do you think he picks up a major coaching role somewhere else?
He won't. Not a head coaching role.
No.
Offensive coordinator.
A coordinator somewhere.
I don't think so.
He's not that old.
He's not that old. I just don't. And you know what the league likes? He's not that old, but he's older than the young, talented guys that come through into those kind of positions. They want the new Brimsfire and the new smoke and mirrors, whatever it is. They want the new thing on the block, which usually comes from the guys in college. So it wouldn't surprise me if Jason maybe goes back to the college ranks to at least get a head coaching gig somewhere, or even an offensive coordinator gig, because I think the NFL's probably worn him out. Worn out his ability, and they know what he's got, and he needs to go prove himself somewhere.
So he was head coach for the Cowboys for 10 years.
10 years.
Winning percentage was...
How many playoff games did they win?
Not many.
I think it might be like one.
No, they won 2 playoff games out
There
of
you
5.
go. There you go.
2 out of 5.
I'll see you one and I'll raise you 2.
That's it.
Not a lot, I think's the point.
Regular season, it was 56%.
Not bad.
Thereabouts. So,
Not bad, but for a Cowboys, America's team,
High expectations.
very high expectations.
Yeah. And he was OC for the Giants for 2 years. And Joe Judge has been with the Giants for 2 years. His winning percentage is 37%.
Yeah,
Sack him. Sack. Have his head.
The Giants stink though, so
That's all just play. You
Had a
do
couple
you,
rough
Joe
seasons.
Judge. Yeah. Those injuries.
Yeah.
Anyways, should we preview the Week 13 games? We have Thursday Night Football, an interesting NFC matchup tomorrow. Dallas Cowboys, they're 7-4. They've dropped a couple of games of late against the New Orleans Saints, who have dropped 4 on the trot since beating the Super Bowl champs in the Buccaneers. They've lost to Atlanta, Tennessee, Philadelphia, and Buffalo. The boys last week, Thanksgiving, they lost to the Raiders. It was an upset. Their offense was okay, but their defense looked like the defense of last year, giving up 36 points to the Raiders. The Raiders, they could move the ball through the air and through the ground against them. And the Saints, they were pretty ordinary against the Buffalo Bills. Do we have any news on Alvin Kamara? If you wouldn't mind chasing that one up, Monks, we will talk about Taysom Hill. He got another big deal in the last week or so.
yeah, odd deal.
It's
Not odd. It's
incentive heavy.
It's a new age kind of deal where it's first player probably of this kind of deal. They didn't want to pay him backup or starting quarterback money like they had in the past, so they've basically gone, well, if you play tight end, you'll get this much money. If you do become starting quarterback, you'll get this much money. I think it's from like 40 mil guaranteed to 96.
Yeah,
So it's
very open, isn't it?
very open, and it really depends on how he plays and what position he plays. By all accounts, it looks like he may start this week because Trevor Siemian, after that game against the Bucks where he came in and played, has regressed to typical Trevor Siemian and has kind of flamed out in recent weeks. Noting, of course, he probably doesn't have many weapons, and his main role is to hand off to Alvin. And without Kamara, that makes it very difficult for him to complete his job.
Indeed.
So, that deal, very interesting. We'll have to see. Well, it again, like we said, puts it on Taysom to succeed in whatever position he does. Either way, he's still getting paid pretty well.
Very well. Very handsomely. Do we have any news there on Alvin Kamara? It's probably a 50-50. Is that fair to say for this weekend?
Any practice? Do you practice just
day
today?
to day. I don't think he has been. I can't find that. Okay. The expectation is that he won't play.
That's good because I'm playing you in fantasy.
I know. I was
Kamara.
just thinking that.
Yeah, and I think Mark Ingram for their backup is also, he didn't play last week.
It's Tony Jones.
Yeah, did nothing, unfortunately, for the Saints.
Tell me about it.
It didn't matter. He still won. So
Only just.
What do you reckon here? I think the Saints they're on a slippery slope. They've lost 4 in a row. I don't think Dallas are that bad. I have gone the Dallas Cowboys here on Thursday Night Football.
Taysom at quarterback, no Kamara, mean no wins for Saints. So I'm going Cowboys.
Monks, you're tipping the odds if you wouldn't mind.
Yep, I'll go on Cowboys as well. They are favourites at $1.46. The Saints are out at $2.74 at the moment. We have a line of 4.5 and total match points of 47.5.
I don't like any of that. I don't think the Saints will score enough points.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
Their offense has
their
offense has been pretty lackluster without their talent back there, and they are missing a lot of talent. So, okay, early Sunday game. We'll kick off with the New York Giants taking on the Miami Dolphins. What I did see interesting this week, through 16 games for Tua, his comparison against Kyler Murray in every major quarterback category is ahead, and Kyler Murray did win Rookie of the Year that year. So
that is very interesting.
Yeah, but of course Tua has his 16 games spread over a much longer period.
Yeah.
But as a direct comparison for 16 versus 16, I thought that was interesting. So the only one he didn't have, I think he had better touchdowns, better intercepts, of course less rushing yards. Passing yards, I think, was very comparable, like within 100 of each other. Percentage was better. Win percentage also better. He's won more games. Kyle, of course, playing for Cards team that went 1-15, I think, the year before. But I thought that was interesting. Tua gets a lot of hate. They want Deshaun Watson, but he's been doing okay things for them.
He's pretty good.
Yeah,
he's my thought. Yeah.
They've won 4 in a row, so
Yep.
that helps them.
And coming off that horrific injury that he suffered at Alabama with his hip dislocating, I've been a big fan of Tua and really want to see him succeed. It's been nice for me, kind of as neutral, couldn't really care how the Dolphins go, to see him put 4 wins together.
Yep. Yeah, but if we keep thinking with the Dolphins, Jalen Waddle has been very good for them. He's coming on. The rookie wide receivers overall, as the first rounders, been excellent all year, so they're killing it. So yeah,
Chase, Waddle, Kadarius Toney's shown flashes.
Yeah, I think Moore was a late pick and he's played well.
I think he might be.
He was early
start
second.
of the second, but he's been
good. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the Giants? They had a big upset last week against the Eagles. Saquon, nice to see, didn't have a huge game, but got a little bit involved, and Kenny Golladay had his most involvement since week 3. What do we think here, boys? I think Miami keep rolling. I think they get the job done here against the G-men and make it 5 in a row.
Yeah, I agree. Miami for me.
I'll switch my tips. I'm going Giants.
Ooh, I like it.
Why?
I don't know.
No reason.
I honestly have no reason.
What's the odds telling you in front of you?
Well, that's the thing. I picked Smokey this week. The Giants are underdogs $1.26. The Dolphins are $1.50. Sorry, $2.60. I don't know.
You said $1.26. Yeah. How did you get $2.60 to $1.20? Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Dyslexia.
Yeah. You've moved the decimal places and added a 1. Okay.
I have. Jeez, yeah.
Yeah. Man, I hope you don't ever do my accounting.
I mean, I have been.
Don't come after me, OTE.
No. Where was I? We have a line of 4.5. Total match points of 40.5.
That's low. I wouldn't mind taking the overs on that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think these guys can both get there.
The Dolphins' defense, we didn't mention, has been fucking lights out in these 4 wins. They've allowed 46 points and have had 10 takeaways in the last 4 weeks. Dolphins' defense, keep an eye on them. Indy at Houston. The Colts did come off a loss against the Bucks last week. However, they've been playing some pretty good football. Jonathan Taylor found the end zone again. He had 83 yards on the ground. He had four catches for 14 yards.
And he did most of that damage in the last quarter because they ignored him for most of the game. I don't know why, but hey, the last quarter they were like, let's go back to what we know and pound the rock, and they went right down the Bucks' throat to kind of make that game close.
He's very good at football. Monks, do you mind having a look at the MVP? I'm sure he's still fairly long. When Derrick Henry was doing his thing, we still had him in the
and he's only just taken
20s.
over Derrick as well.
He's playing very, very well. I tell you who's not playing very, very well is the Houston Texans. They cut Philip Lindsay,
who I think went to Miami as well. So
they pick him up.
So he's at the Dolphins.
And you, as a Denver fan, would have seen him tearing it up a couple of years ago. Again, we speak about the running back market. It is cutthroat.
And especially for Lindsay as a smaller bloke as well. Like he's
5'8", isn't he?
Yeah, and 200 pounds ish if he can get there. 2-3 years in Denver, and then see you later.
It is cutthroat. I imagine we all have gone Indy away here.
They're playing way better football of late.
Yeah.
Any odds there on Jonathan Taylor?
For MVP?
Give us MVP. Who's
Regular season?
is Tom one or is he? Yeah, Tom's had a really good year. It should be fair.
He's 45.
Well, you've seen the Battlefield ad. He was bloody MVP in 2042 or whatever it was, playing at 60-something years old.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Tom Brady's favourite at $4. Close.
Josh Allen's there?
Yeah, $5 close behind him.
I think he's had a bad month, so I think that probably pushes him out of the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, probably not where he was a few weeks ago, but not too bad on the weekend, and no reason why he couldn't take it out.
Yeah,
Who comes in after there?
Yep, so after there, always is up there Aaron Rodgers at $7.50.
In your nose, baby.
Yep. Jonathan Taylor. He's
Number
coming
four?
in 1, 2, 3,
there's a
4,
few
5,
down, but-
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can count to 10.
Who's the first skill position?
Jonathan
Him,
Taylor.
yeah.
It is 10. So
Yep.
all of them are quarterbacks.
All of them quarterbacks.
Can you just give me a run through the quarterbacks?
Yep, sure.
We've done the first 3. Give me the next 6 before we get to Jonathan Taylor.
Yep. So we've got Kyler Murray, Patty Mahomes,
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Matt Stafford, then Jonathan Taylor.
It's interesting that Murray, what was he, 5th or 4th? 5th.
Fourth.
And he's missed 3 weeks.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
So
Had he been playing every game, probably a shoo-in to be favourite so far. Look, it's been a long time since a running back has been the most valuable player in the NFL, but Jonathan Taylor's certainly putting his name forward. Obviously, we've all gone the Colts here. Marks, if you wouldn't mind, the odds in this game, probably the line will be more interesting than the head-to-head.
Yep. So Colts are favourites $1.21. Texans out at $4.45 at the moment. Mm-hmm. We have a line of 5.5 and total match points of 45.5.
Give me Colts minus 5.5 all day, every day. Thank you very much.
would you go overs on that?
Not sure. Don't care. I think the Colts cover that line.
Just back on MVP as well. Mac Jones, 13, seeing at $81 at the moment.
He's potentially firming as offensive rookie of the year. They like to give it to quarterbacks.
I think he will win that.
Yeah.
I think there's fuck all chance he is MVP. But I think, he will be the favourite for...
His competition is Chase, and I think Chase has been...
He's dropped off the last few weeks.
He's been a little bit quiet the last couple of weeks. Like, still putting up, good numbers, but not the numbers he was putting up at the start of the first... through the first 7 weeks.
Sure thing.
That's it.
And we'll get to both of them moving forward. You'd be very surprised if the Colts drop this game. Moving forward, another game which seems to be fairly one-sided. The Minnesota Vikings take on the Detroit Lions. The Vikes came off a loss to the 49ers, but it was an interesting battle. Both managed to score a few points. Kenan Nwagwu, I hope I said that right, he's actually on 2 kickoff return touchdowns. Dalvin Cook went down and Madison came in for him. Monks, if you wouldn't mind chasing up his injury status. And Adam Thielen, White Claw, he had 2 touchdown catches and it's been pretty handy for him. So that dual threat with him and Justin Jefferson. The Lions, man. Like, I'm a Packers fan, you're meant to hate him, but I just feel sorry for him.
Have you seen the pictures of Dan Campbell? Like from his press conference of his introduction to the Lions coach to his press conference from the loss on the weekend.
Has he lost hair?
Not hair, but he looks like he's aged about 10 years. So it is, the Lions we knew were in a tough spot. Stafford's very much been holding that team together and kind of keeping them out of the bottom tier of teams for a very long time. But
and interesting to see him go to the Rams and be so good. And we'll get to him in a
well,
second.
we knew he was talented. Honestly, we knew he was talented.
Yeah.
They haven't been good since Megatron left. They've got nothing at receiver. Swift has been a good find for them. injured, won't play in this game. Jamal Williams will be their starter there, and they've got nothing on defense. So they're a long way away. Vikings by a lot.
Agreed. Vikings for mine. Monks, what have you got on Dalvin Cook?
Yep. So with his dislocated shoulder, they're expecting him to miss at least the next 2 games.
So Swift had a sprained shoulder and will miss at least this game. They're hoping to get him back soon after that.
Tell you what, Madison's pretty handy. He can step in and fill those big shoes of Dalvin Cook. But yeah, be hard pressed to see the Vikings losing this one. I imagine it's 3 Vikings. What are the odds there, Monks?
Yep, 3 Vikings. Vikings are favourites, $1.30. Lions are out at $3.57.
Line?
We've got a line of 7, total match points of 46.5. I think $1.30 is pretty good value for that.
Yeah, you'd reckon.
Can you find quickly for me Alex Madison over 100?
His line won't be that many. It'd be 70 odd maybe.
Well, the last 2 times he started, he went
Yeah,
125 and 110. Like,
He goes off. And Detroit not known for their run defense.
new.
I don't think we have those markets yet.
You should be able to go
Where are we looking?
running back props.
Well, I find that I might start introducing the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Jets because it's a game about who cares. So the Eagles, of course, lost to the Giants last week.
I care. I don't know about Philly.
Yeah, well, Hurts threw 3 picks last week. They looked great against Denver. I think Denver looked terrible, let's put it that way. And New Orleans the last 2 weeks, and then they absolutely stunk against the Giants. They do face another New York team. We did mention, as I mentioned in the intro, that Joe Flacco and Mike White both got COVID, but Zach Wilson is back. I think they'll probably leave Zach Wilson in there as their QB of the future.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Elijah Moore, like I said before, keeps looking
He looks
good.
pretty good, yep.
Probably wasn't as good in their last game. Against the Texans. They did win against the Texans, so the big props there. Elijah Moore didn't have as good as stats, but also he's got Zach Wilson, a rookie, throwing in balls. So that is always going to temper his amount of targets and opportunities he's going to get. Having said all that, Moore probably may get Slay this week because Corey Davis is out and Crowder has been having a bit of a quiet year, potentially quarterback related, less so him related.
And Darius Slay has been good.
Yes. So Mike Carter is on IR as well, so they've been turned to Coleman as their starting kind of running back. I just don't think they have the talent currently to fight this Eagles team, but then Eagles also do Eagles things.
Don't they? It's just very hard to punt on or tip or anything. But
so I'd say avoid this game for any tips or that. I think I went Eagles.
I've gone Philly.
I went Philly.
They're better on paper.
They should win on paper.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Jalen Hurts, unbelievable running the football, and then when he drops back, you just have your heart in your mouth. So be interested to see what he does here against that Jets team, but I imagine they're pretty handy favourites.
Yep. I've got Eagles as well, so 3 Eagles there. They are favourites $1.33. The Jets are out at $3.34 at the moment. We've got a line of 7 and total match points of 45.5.
A few points.
Yeah, I'd avoid.
Yeah. Would not touch.
Did you get me a market for Madison rushing yards?
No markets.
Not yet.
It might still be a little bit early.
Okay, all good. So we turn to the Cards taking on the Bears. The Cards 9-2 record, best in the NFL, matching the Suns, I believe, for the best in the NBA.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona doing well as a state. Kyler and Nuke both practice this week. They're both limited for Wednesday practice, first practice of the week. Both should be on track. They potentially could rest Kyler again. But by all accounts, they wanted to use the bye because they had a bye last week to get them both right, which would mean they both missed a month worth of football. They should play in this game. Andy Dalton did lead the Bears to a scrappy win on Thanksgiving against the Lions. Not a game you should watch unless you want to torture yourself.
It was close.
Yeah, it was close. Exactly, it was close. Did break their 5-game losing streak. I believe Fields has got cracked ribs, so he's probably a week or two away.
Yep.
I don't think they'll probably stick with Andy at least.
Be a red rifle. Yep.
Yeah, they'd stick with him going forward, at least for now. He did throw 300 yards in this in that game against the Lions, the first time since week 9. Mooney is probably their number one at the moment. I think Robinson's been hurt as well, which is
unhappy apparently.
He's been unhappy for years. He's been playing with bum quarterbacks for ages. He wants to go elsewhere, and they keep they franchise tagged him, so he'll go elsewhere in off season. So Mooney looking was good. I think he had 8 targets, 5 catches for 123 yards. Rumours Matt Nagy might get fired. I think they probably want to give him some time with Fields.
Yep.
And then they're not the worst team in football. They're not very good, though.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to...
Cards win this, irrespective if it's, Kyler Nuke's show or if it's Colt McCoy and James Connor.
Colt McCoy's been sneaky good. He's been doing a job, in the absence of Kyler and DeAndre. Yeah, agreed. I think Matt Nagy deserves a little bit more time there at Chicago, especially when Justin Fields gets healthy. But yeah, you can't go past the number 1 seed in the NFC. I've tipped the Arizona Cardinals. Monks, what you got for us?
Yep, I've got the Cards as well. They are favourites $1.26. The Bears are out at $3.90 at the moment. We have a line of 7.5 with total match points of 45.5.
Don't like much of that outside of Arizona winning.
Yep.
This is a really interesting game.
Yeah, well, the Chargers coming off getting fucked by Denver.
Yeah, you
at Chris Peppers. Yes, very happy with that. Probably getting the Pretenders tag, I think. They've got some talent there, but they just run into those top teams. Not to say Denver is a top team by any account, but comparable teams or teams with a slightly more talent, and they just end up falling in a heap. And yeah, they proved on Denver they really couldn't move the ball, either passing or on the ground. Denver played pretty well on a D. Patrick Surtain, 2 picks, 1 touchdown. Big shout out to him.
The rookie.
Yeah, his first touchdown in Denver. His dad's last touchdown was in Denver. So there you go. A bit of history there. Bengals, on the other hand, have been looking good. Joe Mixon back healthy. Give him all the carries. He's killing it. That really opens up for Chase and Burrow to do their thing.
And T. Higgins it was last week.
T. Higgins as well. Yeah, don't forget about T. Higgins coming out of Clemson. Everyone forgets about him and talks about the LSU boys. But they murdered the Steelers, who are just old. Let's call Ben old.
Yeah, slow.
Yeah. Throwing absolute lame ducks at this point. So I think this is Ben's last year. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough
He's
assessment. However, this game in the Chargers and Bengals, it's a really interesting matchup because both have a sniff here as AFC wildcard hopefuls. For mine, I think one team looks a lot better than the other, and I think that's the Cincinnati Bengals. I've gone the Bengals here.
Yeah, Bengals at home. I think I picked them as well. I like that's what some of the key position, like the players they've got on the Chargers team, but like Joey Bosa getting stiff armed by Teddy Bridgewater, kind of reflects where their season is at the moment.
And they're just so inconsistent. They look so good one week, and they just look so ordinary.
It might be because they've got like a second year quarterback. He's still finding his feet in the league, and they got a young coach as well. Stanley's only been there 2 years as well, so they're kind of still finding their way. Maybe they're a year or two away, but
sounds exactly like the Cincinnati Bengals to me. But
it's true.
Maybe one's better than the other. I think that's another storyline in this one: Herbert versus Burrow.
Yeah.
Two elite young quarterbacks. Who will turn out to be the better one? Time will tell.
I think I said this
will be interesting.
I said the same thing about the Bengals, and I think they kind of proved a couple of weeks ago where they're kind of at. One of these teams potentially could play playoffs. I don't think either of them do go deep. They're a year away kind of thing. They need some extra pieces to kind of get them to where they need to be.
Agreed.
Both have the quarterbacks though that they need for the future.
Indeed.
So
Bengals.
Yep, I've gone Bengals as well. They are favourites $1.58 at the moment. Chargers are out at $2.39.
It's not bad value.
Yep, we've got a line of 3 and total match points of 50.5.
I was thinking maybe take the overs. That is quite high, but both these teams can score some points.
Yeah, they could easily put 60 on this. Like this could be one of those 33,
Bit of a shootout.
34 shootout kind of games.
But 50, whenever you start getting to 50, you get a bit nervous. So.
Well, like what the Chargers scored 14 last week?
Yeah,
Four-
13. Yeah.
13, but
Week before, they were 41. The week before that, they were 20.
yeah, well, Bengals D's probably not the same kind of D as facing Denver's D is at the moment. So they should score points. I think they can score 28, 30 plus. Bengals can do the same. Like potentially overs could be there. But it might be a close one.
So both the Chargers and Bengals put up 41 points against Steelers.
So
1 week after the other.
Steelers, not the same Steelers.
Nope.
Their
And
defense isn't real good at the
I have still been playing their defense on my fantasy team.
Wow.
Get around the Dolphins, they're going good.
Yeah.
right.
Saturday afternoon games, NFC South matchup, which you tend to think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get the Bickies here at Atlanta. The Bucks, absolute shootout against the Colts. Regular season,
I was
Lenny.
worried for a moment, but yeah.
Fair enough too. It went right down to it. Probably the best game we've seen out of Leonard Fournette in quite some time, if not ever. He had 4 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 1 in the air, 24 total touches.
Cemented himself.
44 PPR fantasy points. He's running back 5 in PPR fantasy. I don't think anyone really picked that happening at the start of the year, even though he had such a good playoff run last year.
Well, I think we should talk about, Jones has kind of fallen off and he's in the doghouse. And
Isn't he?
Bernard really hasn't added that much as a receiving option.
Catches, but that's
hey, if Lenny's getting 7 catches in a game, they're like, well, he can catch, let's keep him in. So
he's looking like a top 5 drafted running back, isn't he? And it's good to see.
He's getting the snaps. So, yeah, it's good to see. Good to see Gronk back as well, doing Gronk things.
Gronk smash.
I think that comedy looked vintage, and he's like, "I'm happy, I'm vintage." I only think he's only 30, like he's still a young bloke.
Yeah,
so,
31, maybe.
31,
It's our age. Fuck, that's
What, the fact that he was considering retiring or had retired?
He had retired for a year.
The fact that he's just completely balling it at the moment.
Yeah, and he's got a good rig and probably parties harder. Anyways, we could go down a whole rabbit hole there, couldn't we?
Yeah, Falcons, they did come up for a W against the Lonely Jags. That man, Cordell Patterson, continues to impress. 16.
Dude.
He's RB1 at this point.
No question.
Yeah. 16 carries for 108 yards, 2 tartars with 2 catches of 27. They've actually listed him on the defensive depth chart as well. He's their backup safety now too. Because he was like, hey, I need to add some, defense to my capability.
He's built like a hard-hitting safety.
Yeah, he'd probably be big for a safety. Like, it's a big safety coming after you. I don't think he's going to play any safety, but hey, he's on the depth chart for shits and giggles. Of course, I mentioned the Falcons, they signed another punter.
Yeah, how did that get in the notes?
I don't know.
He's not Australian.
Yeah, it was just news. They signed a punter.
Thomas Morstead, welcome to the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, punters are real people, so
they are.
I don't think it matters in this game. I don't think it helps them beat the Buccaneers. I've gone Bucks.
Don't know
about that.
Who has the biggest podcast in the NFL realm in the world? Pat McAfee.
Yeah, a punter. Yeah.
A punter.
Yeah, but who's also got one of the biggest mouths in the NFL world?
Pat McAfee.
Exactly.
So
I mean, he's the right comedian as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he talks. Like, he can tell a good story, a good joke as well.
Not too bad. In terms of this game, what are we thinking? You think the Buccaneers get the bickies here, although Atlanta kind of trending in the right direction, but I imagine 3 Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. The odds reflect that. So Buccaneers are heavy favourites at $1.17. The Falcons are out at 5.10 at the moment. We have a line of 11 and total match points of 50.5.
Quite high scoring.
No, I'd go unders on that.
Wouldn't touch anything.
I wouldn't touch it low, yeah.
The Bucks win that, though, surely.
Yep. Speaking of another game that should end up in a definite win. The Rams should fuck the Jags after been playing some pretty average football of late since the Odell Beckham Jr. Pickup. But then again, the Browns haven't played overly well in that time frame either.
And it's not OBJ's fault.
No, he's got a touchdown on the weekend.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I think the Rams just have been in a rough period. I think their defense, for how highly tailored they are with the names they've got on, haven't really played to what they could be.
Well, we saw that on the weekend, didn't we, against the Packers? But they put on 36 points against.
Yeah, well, Aaron Rodgers didn't matter if Ramsey was covering Adams. He went to him. I think he was 7 of 7.
Didn't care there. Didn't care if Donald
5 for 5
was
for
coming
first
after
down.
him.
So yeah,
But
didn't matter.
Having said that, the Rams are still pretty good. They're still pretty good. They're 7-4. Like, let's not get too carried away. We did allude to it earlier in the podcast. Matt Stafford is having an unreal year.
Yep.
He's over 3,300 yards, 27 touchdowns, 9 intercepts. The poor bloke, it's good to see him getting some there at Los Angeles after, sticking it out for a long time at Detroit.
Yep.
You'd imagine the Rams get this job done. Of course, Jacksonville knocked off Buffalo in a very unusual game a few weeks ago. Do we see this happening this weekend? I would say no. You would say
no. I think the Rams need to they're going to right their ship. So, and I think the note you got there, the Jags got Texans and Jets coming up. Potentially, there's some wins there, but their season's going to be a long one, and they're not going to have many wins. Probably picking in the top 5.
At best, Jacksonville finishes this year with 4 wins. I did have a look. I highlighted the Texans and Jets as potential wins. Outside of that, I don't think they bother anyone. Anyways, thinking of Trevor Lawrence, an unbelievable talent. Sometimes they just wind up at a bit of a shit show of an organisation. But
they're a couple of years away from where they need to be. They've got football Jesus now, and then they got to build around him.
So that's what happens when you go number 1 in the NFL draft.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you hope to be Mac Jones and end up with the Patriots. Let's be honest.
Sometimes lower is better. Monks,
it.
what's the odds here? Do we have the Rams over $1.10?
Only just. So they are low. They are $1.14 at the moment. My tip is the Rams as well. Jaguars are out at $5.80. We have a line of 13 and total match points of 47.5.
I'd take the Rams with that. Oh, it's always hard with the line, isn't it? But at home, they should get out to an outstanding start, you'd think.
They should blow them out of the water. If they don't, I'd be really concerned about Rams football for the rest of the year.
About pretender tags.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, so we have the Washington football team taking on the Las Vegas Raiders next. The Washington football team on a 3-win winning streak as well. They did beat the Seattle Seahawks during the week. Antonio Gibson seems like his shin fractures aren't causing him any more issues.
Look good.
He had 36 touches in total between his carries and receptions in this one. May need to do more in this game with JD suffering that really bad. Well, it looked bad, like neck compression, concussion of the head.
You don't like to see them.
And he was out cold, so it was a bad one for him. They're currently 7th seed in the NFC with Philly losing. The Raiders did win that overtime thriller we mentioned against the boys, and Derek Carr is 6-0 this year when he throws over 300 yards. Interesting. Monks, can you find an answer for Darren Waller where he's at? Deshaun Jackson doing Deshaun Jackson things for the Raiders.
Dude, he's still fast as fuck.
Yeah.
He's fast as fuck, boy.
Yeah.
He's fast as fuck, boy.
Yeah. Perhaps what happened with your multi?
I won one. It happens. I think I won enough to cover a bit of my losses from the rest of the year. So definitely still in the red on the NFL. But it's always nice once in a while. Yeah. 1-1 on that Cowboys-Raiders game there on Thanksgiving. The Raiders are last in the AFC West, and they have a winning record, 6-5. Most likely, we're probably seeing 3 teams come out of the AFC West.
Could be.
Who knows? Who knows? It's a long time out. This game is very interesting. We've got this Washington football team, highly touted defense at the start of the year. We're playing like dog shit to start off, but have started to kind of put things together.
Well, yeah.
Taylor Heineke looks pretty good, and Derek Carr looks really good. And despite all the adversity with the Gruden and the Ruggs things here, the Raiders are 6-5. This is one of the harder tips of the week, boys. I've gone the Raiders at home. I think they get it done, but I probably won't be betting on this game, and I wouldn't be too confident with that tip.
Yeah, I wouldn't go anywhere near this game betting wise. I picked Washington. I want to
away win.
Yeah, away win. Continue their roll on. Go to the 4 wins in a row. Be interesting to see how they go in this one. Step up in competition. I think the Seahawks are a bit stinky this year. So they're different, and they haven't beat the best competition, and the Raiders. A very competitive AFC West at the moment. Really need a wins, but I don't know. I like Washington purely because I got Gibbs in my fans team, but otherwise.
Alex, you've got a deciding tip here. Hasn't happened very much this evening. What have you got?
So real quick on Darren Waller, he is not at practice as of Wednesday, week to week as usual. Yeah. I have gone the Raiders this week.
The Raiders. The odds, I imagine, pretty close.
Yep, yeah, pretty close. So the Raiders are favourites at $1.69. I waited for that.
Yeah, we're all in our thirds.
Very mature here.
Yeah, of course.
On the Esky.
Dinner for 2, let's go. Well, sorry.
We're both married, so it's usually 96 for us, where we don't talk to each other and lay in bed, not looking at each other.
Nothing wrong with that either. You get tired, Just sometimes
working all day.
Yeah, they're working all day. You still love each other, but just you want to get your 8 hours, get it done with. I'll see you on date night in 4 weeks.
Finish these odds, mate. Date night in 4 weeks.
I've completely lost that now.
We're talking about 69ing and the perils of marriage.
Actually, yeah, we'll get into that in a moment. The football team is underdogs $1.18. The line. So you mentioned 69 before. Washington football team, line 2.5 is at $1.96.
Oh,
so there's the other half. Yep.
Premonition.
Exactly, and total match points of 49.5.
Okay. All right. So all we got out of that is Derek Carr to 69, Terry McLaurin at the end of this game paying $100,000 for one.
All right, let's move into the north. So we have Baltimore Ravens taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers
in a tight AFC North.
Yes. Besides maybe the Steelers, but the Ravens, they're still there, but 5-5 with a draw, and the Ravens at 8-3, leading the AFC, I believe, at the current state. Ravens, they did get their win over the Browns, despite Lamar throwing 4 picks. I probably think this is more conversation about the Browns, who only rushed like 40 yards.
How in the fuck did the Ravens win this game? Seriously, it was low scoring. Lamar with his arm was horrendous. Pretty good with his legs, as per usual.
Are the Browns playing this week, or are they on bye?
They're on a bye.
Let's mention Browns here then. I think they in their bye hopefully need to sort some shit out because
they couldn't run the ball. They've got the number, like you'd think on paper, the best running back tandem in the NFL, and they ran for fucking 40 yards with Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
There's some serious problems going on at the Browns.
I wonder, because Hunt came back into this game and they played a lot more snaps. I wonder if that then maybe affected Chubb's like juju of how, or his, getting into the game,
couldn't get a rhythm.
Yeah, rhythm, exactly. That's what I'm looking for. Not juju.
Struster also struggling to get a rhythm.
Yeah, I think injured at the moment. So the rhythm into that game, and then Baker's playing with I'm not sure if you've seen his strap with the braces on it, so it can't go to certain angles.
He needs surgery.
Supposedly, like, he was his healthiest, but then he's like limping around with an A-frame, so he's cooked. So
He needs surgery.
Yeah,
Poor Baker. I like him. I think he's a likable dude.
Yeah.
I saw a meme this week. It was like when you realise that Baker Mayfield is sober Johnny Manziel.
pretty much.
But I just thought that was funny. But it's not a dig either at Baker Mayfield. I think he's got some good stuff ahead of him.
He needs a couple of months away. Essentially, he needs to go recover, have the surgery, etc. Get right, because the Browns can't carry the load currently with him, especially if they can't run the ball. And I think the Ravens came into this with a good game plan of take the run away, make Baker throw the ball, because he can't do it. And they played good D.
And coming away from the Browns, back to this AFC North matchup.
Speaking of quarterbacks that can't throw the football, they take
an
on
old
Big
one
Ben.
and a young one. I think the Ravens do this easily. I've not been impressed by anything that I've seen out of Pittsburgh this year.
Outside of Harris, he's their only shining light. The rest of them are really struggling.
He got shut down last week by the Bengals. I've gone Ravens here. I think they do it pretty comfortably.
Yeah, same.
Yep, I've gone Ravens as well. They are favourites at $1.45 at the moment. The Steelers are out at $2.78. We do have a line of 4.5. Total match points of 44.5. Sorry, 44.
I like Ravens line, to be honest. Although Ravens love a hard-fought, gritty, kind of close one.
Especially against the Steelers.
Yeah.
And it is at Heinz Field, so no, I wouldn't go near the total match points at all. I'd just pick Ravens by head-to-head.
So not unofficial sponsors and not official sponsors, Sportsbet, have the Steelers.
We're off them.
Yeah, we're off them. Steelers have failed to cover the line in the last 6 of their 7 games at Heinz Field.
They're dropping off.
Line does look juicy, I guess.
End of an era. In the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers take on the Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers have 3 wins in a row. They beat the Vikings last week. Their offense is actually clicking. They have 30 points in 4 of their last 5 games. I'll tell you who else who's clicking. Elijah Mitchell. He had 27 touches last week, 133 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And Deebo Samuel, we talk about Cordero Patterson as being that Swiss Army knife, that running back receiver, don't really know what he is. Deebo Samuel, 6 carries last week, 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. When you think about it, it doesn't really surprise you that much because he's built like a running back.
He's had these packages for a while, and Kyle Shanahan loves to pound the rock and run the football, so it's not unsurprising.
And he likes a bit of an unusual playbook as well, doesn't he?
So you've run Eli Mitchell 27 times. You throw in the little sneaky of Deebo Samuel as a running back as well, to keep you honest and to do a bit of trick plays there. So. Yeah, it's not unsurprising. I think Debo's a bit banged up, though. He left this game. He didn't finish this game. I'm not sure what his injury is. I think he might be all right. Monks, can you confirm he's going to play in this or not? They did sign Funchess from the Packers after getting cut by the Packers as an extra wide receiver option.
Be interesting to see what Devin Funchess can do. I think he was a first rounder back in the day with the Carolina Panthers. Big-bodied, touted as like a Megatron kind of bloke and has not really lived up to any expectation.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what he can do at San Francisco. Seattle, on the other hand.
Well, we mentioned it. They can't run the ball. They've signed AP. I don't think AP's playing. He's going to play in this game.
Russ doesn't look like Russ.
He's overthrown everybody. Like, he really struggled to connect with DK in this game. He did connect with Lockett a fair bit, especially when Lockett was open 50 yards downfield. But yeah, DK 1 catch for 13 yards to make sure he didn't get a donut in this one. But I think you put the note in there, Peps. DK has more hair colours this year than he has wins.
Yes, four hair colours and 3 wins. And this is coming from a guy that loves DK Metcalf.
Same here, big DK fan.
And Monkey's got him on his fantasy team. He's an absolute specimen.
He's been in the league 3 years, and 3 of us have had him in our fantasy teams, I think.
Yeah, and I really wanted them this year. And I'm glad I didn't get him, to be honest. But that's no hate against DK. Obviously has all the talent in the world.
I think it probably speaks more volumes about Russ and where Russ is at the moment.
I saw some nasty memes about Russ this week. There was like a let Russ cook, and it was like Vegemite on toast. Like it was like something that I would cook up, as if on.
Hey, if they can't run the ball, they definitely should be passing it more. And I think Russ was passing it more.
He's a bit like Big Ben, isn't he? And he just doesn't look like his old self.
Russ at least can throw it 20 yards downfield. So
but he's just it's kind of like you really want to root for the guy, but you also kind of.
I think he's actually just not there. They might not mention the finger injury as much, but I think it's probably maybe affecting his release point or his grip or something's a little bit off. It's just not right.
Definitely.
And that little tolerance ends up being, a yard overthrown where it's just too high for a guy like DK to go up and get it. For that reason, I think their season's going in the wrong direction, but I've picked the 49ers. I think this is the first time they have a losing season. Because they won't get. They might get back to 500, but by all accounts, they have first losing season for Russ and Peter Carroll. First time under 500.
They wouldn't have had one for a long time.
No,
and I'm glad you mentioned Pete Carroll. Do you think he might call it at the end of the year?
No. If Russell's still there, I think he stays. If they move Russell goes elsewhere.
And he's even been very gracious this year in saying a lot of my success in my career has come down to this man, Russell Wilson, which you love to see out of a bloke, giving credit where credit's due.
So I think they're tied at the hip. So
it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting what happens to Pete Carroll. I think he's the oldest coach in the NFL.
70 plus.
So it will be interesting to see what happens there. To a man that won a Super Bowl and went to two. But I think maybe his last year there in the Pacific Northwest.
Don't think they win this game. 49ers for me.
Agree. 49ers. Monks, your thoughts, please.
Yep. So Adrian Peterson was signed to practice squad. Most likely definitely not starting anytime soon. You mentioned the record. So after the 49ers, they've got Texans, Rams, Bears, Lions, and Cards.
A lot of winnable games there. Texans, Lions.
A few there, but still not going to hit that.
They lose the Cards and Rams and probably win the other three.
So they lose this weekend and they can't get a winning record. That's it right there.
That's it.
Odds, Max?
Yeah, so I've gone 49ers. Odds are their favourites $1.56. The Seahawks are out at $2.44. We have a line of 3 and total match points of 45.5.
Let's go into Sunday night football prime time. AFC West matchup. The Denver Broncos take on the Kansas City Chiefs. I need to quickly relieve myself, but I'm sure you would like to talk about your Denver Broncos.
I'll talk for them for the next 5 minutes.
They're looking pretty good.
Well, they've been up and down all year, unfortunately. We're good again currently, so we'll see how long that lasts. But we do, like we said, big divisional game on prime time. For the lead in the AFC West, whoever wins this game will be number one in the West. We did run the ball well. Melvin Gordon's been looking good. Javonte Williams is the leading rusher without a start in the NFL. So that's a little bit of stat for you there. So I'm on the free Javonte Williams bandwagon, considering he's on my fantasy team. Only team in the league with 2 runners over 500 rush yards, I believe, and kind of shows that their committee they've got. We did sign Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton to good deals through the year, so lock them up for the next 3 to 4 years, which goes hand in hand with Judy and Hamler on their rookie contracts. So they're going to be there. So, our receiving core's pretty much set.
You happy with those deals?
I think it's good money. It wasn't like we didn't pay overs. I don't think we paid unders. I think it was fair deals. Very much makes a very good selling point to potential quarterbacks at Aaron Rodgers, at Deshaun Watson, that potentially want to be traded somewhere at the end of the season. Because, where the defense is at, where the young talent is on offense, we don't need any of those picks anymore. I've traded all those bitches away. And let's get a quarterback, because I think that's the one thing we're missing. Yeah, because, Luck in that game, he came in for a hurt Teddy, threw a stupid pick. Then they benched him to play Teddy on one leg for the rest of the game and got the win. But Teddy's not he's not going to win you a Super Bowl. So I'm Judas in this and picked the Kansas City like I did last week and picked Chargers to say Denver won. So let's roll with that, and I'll stick with that going forward.
Over with that.
Pep's pick.
Kansas City.
I've also Kansas City. Their defense has played better in the last month than it has at the start of the year.
Yeah,
so
they looked very ordinary to start off the year, to be honest.
They've kind of come together a bit better. Offense, I'm still worried about Mahomes. He's throwing more picks than I probably would like from Patty Mahomes.
Yeah.
I think he leads the league in picks currently.
He did a few weeks ago.
Maybe one or two of the other guys that throwing 3 picks during the week overtook him. But yeah, Kansas at home. I think Denver's record in Arrowhead in December is 3-19. Kansas City's record coming off the bye is 19-3. Put that all together, Kansas City going to win this.
Great research out of you there, Sean, and I tend to agree. I think Kansas City get the biggies here, although very impressed with the way Denver have been playing. Monks, if you wouldn't mind your tip and the odds. Did you guys talk about Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton?
Yep. Covered it.
Very good, very good.
I've gone Chiefs as well. They are favourites $1.21. The Broncos are out at $4.45 at the moment. We have a line of 9.5. Total match points of 47.5.
Wouldn't mind the overs there. Wouldn't mind the overs.
I'd say it depends on weather. Arrowhead in December. If it's snowing, unders.
Moving forward to a game which may be weather dependent, Monday Night Football.
Best game this week.
A massive matchup, huge AFC East divisional rivals. New England Patriots taking on the Buffalo Bills. New England, lo and behold, they lead that division at 8-4. Buffalo with the bye in hand, 7-4. The Pats have 6 wins on the trot. Their defense has been playing absolutely lights out. Good. They've given up 63 points in those 6 wins, so averaging about 10 points allowed per game, and they have 17 takeaways, just about 3 takeaways per game. Mac Jones, he's thrown for nearly 3,000 yards. He has 16 touchdowns and 8 intercepts, and the Bills are starting to get back in the right direction. There was a lot of question marks around them a few weeks ago. We did mention earlier that Tre'Davious White has done his ACL. He's probably a top 5 corner in the league.
Their best player in the secondary by far. So.
Yeah, in quite a good secondary there with Michael Howard and Jordan Poyer. Boys, this one is pretty hard to split for mine. I'm going to go Buffalo to break some New England hearts. Obviously, Bill Belichick, he's got the boys going in the right direction, that stellar defense, and Mac Jones, running that offense just as a game manager. But I think the Bills have got a pretty stout defense to themselves, and I think on paper, maybe their offense has got the edge on New England.
I think a pretty crazy thought here. If I told you in week 13, and this is dependent on the Baltimore Ravens losing their match, and the Patriots win, being the leaders of the AFC after 13 weeks, you would have been like, no way with a rookie quarterback.
Not early on in the year, no.
Yeah, but potentially that could be where they end up at the end of this week. But I think Ravens are going to sort the Steelers out easily, so they should maintain their number 1 spot, but be very closely followed by the New England Patriots if they do get the win. I'm sticking on the Mac Jones bandwagon, as I have been all year. I think Buffalo, like you said, better on paper, but hey, don't discount the New England Patriots. Probably proof that Bill Belichick is as good a coach as people think he is. Yep. Took him a year to retool. COVID, missing half his defenders, but hey, he's got everyone now, and they're cooking, ready to go to another playoffs. A year removed from letting the GOAT go down to Tampa Bay. So, yeah, impressive organization, impressive head coach. Probably doesn't matter too much in this matchup, but I've picked the Patriots for an upset.
I like it. Bold. It's very bold. Marks, you will have the deciding pick in this game in a round where there is a lot of kind of clear favourites, but this one, really could go either way. What are your thoughts?
Yep. Yeah. So first off, I'll go back to Mac Jones. So, offensive rookie of the year, his odds are $1.36.
Yeah, fair enough.
What's Chase at?
Yeah, right behind him, Chase is $3.08. So fair gap there.
Already firming up.
Yep, that's
I think if we had this conversation a month ago, would have been very different. But Jamar has been very quiet in the last few games. I think Max got this pretty much wrapped up.
Yeah. And just for completeness sake, I'll jump over the other side of the board as well. So defensive rookie of the year, we've got Micah Parsons with the Cowboys at $1.14.
Yeah.
Solid
I think they should give it to him because he was drafted as an inside linebacker and they're like, hey, go play outside linebacker.
And he causes drama.
Yeah,
he causes drama for any tackles.
He's got the best rookie rating for an outside pass rusher. He's getting sacks. He's getting heaps of pressures. Like, he's a crazy athlete. Like, that's fair.
Well, you've looked at Cowboys' defense this year compared to last year. I'm not saying it's all on his back, but
they are better.
I think between him and Trayvon Diggs, they've been the main catalyst for them improving.
I'm biased, give it to Satan, but anyway, keep going.
Well, he's coming in second at
$9. Load up. A few picks, who knows? There's still a bit of football to go.
That's it, yeah. Back to this game, I have tipped the Bills. They are favourites at $1.68 at home. Patriots are $2.19, being the away team. We do have a line of 2.5. So very close game, and total match points of 42.5.
Quite low there.
Very low. It is in Buffalo, so maybe they're assuming bad weather in December. I still kind of like that. I think these guys could probably go after each other a little bit.
I reckon so too.
42, like that's a bit like if it was 45 or 47, I'd be less inclined to do it. But 42, that seems low to me.
It is low, but it is also a few days out, so who knows if it's blowing an absolute blizzard over there in Orchid Park. But that will wrap up the games. The teams on the buys this week. We spoke at length before about the Browns. They have a tough run going home. I don't see them playing playoff football, to be honest.
What's the record at the moment? 5-6?
Or is it 5-5? It'll be one of the two. I had a question for you guys. I looked it up today. Do you know the last time the Cleveland Browns won their division?
A very long time ago.
Give me a year. Have a crack.
Oh, I'm just thinking of the quarterbacks. It wasn't Brady Quinn. Did they win one with Dan Anderson?
Nope.
No.
Further back.
Wasn't this millennium?
Was not this millennium.
90s?
No.
Do you want me to put you out in misery?
Was Jim Brown the running back? We're going that far back?
1989. Not in our lifetime.
That's what month in 1989?
Well, yeah. Well, maybe you guys. I'm a young whippersnapper here in 1990.
Yeah.
The Packers, they have a bye. Pretty impressive against the Rams. They are the second seed in the NFC. AJ Dillon continues in his development.
Just back on the Browns, sorry. So they're 6-6 at the moment.
6-6. It's not impossible. But they've got Baltimore.
They probably lose to Baltimore again.
They've got the Raiders.
Maybe they win against the Raiders.
At Green Bay.
I think they lose to Green Bay.
Cincinnati.
I think they beat Pittsburgh, but then they lose to Cincinnati. So
it's a hard run home.
So they win 3-2 in that and finish 10-9. No, 10 and 8. Sorry. No, that's not right.
17
games. 9 and 7. Fuck me. Quick math.
Cincinnati hasn't got the easiest run home, though. So they've got Chargers this week, 49ers, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, and Browns.
Nothing easy about that.
They won't finish first. They'll either finish second or equal with Cincinnati, and it might depend on tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Anyway. Packers on bye as well. They did have that impressive win over the Rams. They are currently second seed in the NFC. A.G. Dillon continues to take snaps away from Aaron Jones. How do you feel about that, Peppy?
It's good to see. They're very different running backs. One is, Jerome Bettis, big, truck it up the middle running back, and then one's a kind of smaller, shifty guy that can be used a little bit more outside of the tackles. As a Packers fan, like to see both of them go forward. The Panthers, we spoke at length about CMC.
They're fucked. Their season's done.
Pretty hard without him. And the Titans, they signed Golden Tate this week.
By all accounts, a good run blocker. So exactly what they need in Tennessee.
And AJ Brown is on injured reserve. This one came as a little bit of a shock
It might only be like a 3-week one.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, that's a free roster spot for Golden Tate, in other words.
Sure.
To do it that way. But I think they got Julio out too I think even Julio's on injured reserve. So
they're banged up, the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. Considering where they were, 2-3 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
The head of the AFC, after coming off like 4 straight wins against playoff teams. Yeah, how the season can turn.
Any news there, Mugs?
So Brown suffered chest, ribs, and hand injuries in the loss against the Texans. They're banged up there. Yeah, so he'll be out for the next 3 weeks at least. Yeah.
And that will wrap up the NFL coming into week 13.
So talk some NBA, and you might want to talk about No Loss November for the Suns to kick us off.
Yeah, Devin Booker. Yeah. He tweeted No Loss November, possibly a shout out to something that I've heard of called No Nut November.
Which he failed.
Yeah, I've never really tried it, to be honest.
Within an hour.
Well,
what do you call it? Like 1 a.m. 1st of November.
I don't know. It sounds like a fucking stupid challenge to me, if I'm being honest. But let's talk about Suns basketball. This again, it's like last year. They just play good team basketball. They have 6 players averaging double-digit points. Of course, Devin Booker and CP3 in that. DeAndre Ayton, he is having himself a season. 16 points, 12 rebounds, shooting the ball at 63% from the field. The big 3 there for them, all averaging double digits. But then really good input from Mikal Bridges, JaVale McGee, and our man, our favourite on the Esky, Frank the Tank Kaminsky. He is at the Phoenix Suns, and he is putting it in. Again, always the question mark is, can they do it? You know, come June, come July, can they go deep? They showed last year that they can go deep, but they just fell short. But nothing to sneeze at. A 17-game win streak there for the Phoenix Suns. We did allude to it earlier in the podcast. The desert state, the what do they call it? The Valley of the Sun, something like that.
Your story.
The guys in the desert out at Phoenix, they've got a really good football team. They've got a really good basketball team moving forward. Now, look, boys, it is probably a week old now, but we have to talk about it. LeBron James, him and Isaiah Stewart, there was an incident. It did kind of look a little bit intentional from Bron.
Oh, big time.
Going back, he cuts up Isaiah Stewart.
Well, it wasn't. The elbow wasn't just straight back. It was actually up and elevated to hit him square in the face.
Dog shot or accidental?
Nah, dog shot.
Dog shot. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Look, LeBron's got a pretty squeaky clean record.
Been in the news a lot this week, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
besides this, but anyway,
a little bit out of character for him. What about?
They're having a tough season, so I think he's frustrated. Let's put it that way. And wouldn't surprise me if Stewart's been into him all game, and he's just like, "Fuck you."
Yep.
Let me sneak this elbow in, and I think they both get ejected. I think Stewart got fined more than LeBron did.
Interesting.
But I think that's more because of Stewart's actions after the event.
Run us through those if you would.
Well, I think he's missed tackles and post yards after contact would be pretty good. Yeah, exactly.
Trucking it up. That was, I reckon, 7 missed tackles.
Yeah. He had 3 or 4 attempts and definitely got through. What was it? Dwight Howard, I think, had his best offensive game, kind of standing in the way of Stewart trying to get to LeBron in this.
Yep.
So a lot of memes came out of that. Ended up, that was last week's news, and not too much else came out of that besides a bit of fines for them.
One game
suspensions. Yeah, so not a huge thing.
Then LeBron came back. Against the Pacers, and by all accounts, what was said from the front row to him was disgusting.
Yeah. A few women.
It was a young couple. Allegedly had made remarks around Bronny, LeBron's son, saying that they hope he dies in a car accident.
Hope your son dies. And LeBron's was like, fuck you guys.
Rightfully so. LeBron's got that kind of clout where he can just point at the Seckies and just say, those two out of here, and that's what happened. I think they were making a boohoo kind of gesture as they got escorted out of the arena there. The comments were kind of funny. Like, I don't want to, condone any kind of, behaviour like that, but, some of the terminology that was getting thrown around was like le Karen, le snitch, le kicked you out. I quite liked out. I quite like that. If you will.
I think, in all seriousness, it was fair. Like if some random couple showed up to your workplace and then started talking about your family members dying, you'd be like, hold on a second.
And you're 6'8", a supreme athlete, and they're 5'7". Haven't seen a gym since 1998. Then I think you're within your reason.
Born in 1998.
That's probably when they were born, and that's probably the last time they saw it. When they were getting driven home by mum and dad to go home, in which they never partook in lifting weights or being any kind of athlete. Look. People like to shit on LeBron. They like to, gang up on him. But if that's what's said, good, kick them out. There's no room in the game for that. Fuck that off. Good on you, LeBron. And just quietly, he had 39 points in that game. They won it in overtime. He is an arguable GOAT. The Lakers obviously do a lot better when he is playing. That was a big story out of the Lakers in this last week. Yep. And for mine, good on him.
Yep. So we should probably talk about Josh Giddey. And Monks, do you want to bring up the table while we do? He has joined LaMelo Ball, and LeBron James is the only teenagers to have 100 assists, 100 boards in their first 20 games, and he's only played 18. So he's been pretty impressive. By all accounts, the American media loves him, and the young Australian. So he's been pretty impressive of late.
Top 5 in Rookie of the Year betting from all of what I've seen. I saw a really nice photo on his Instagram this week. I think the caption was something along the lines of playing against idols. And it was him guarding Paul George and Steph Curry. Yep. As a 19-year-old coming out of Australia, to be out there and absolutely in awe and in respect and, just lost for words to be sharing a court with blokes like that. Josh Giddey, he looks like a really good talent in the NBA, and obviously as Australians, love to see him going forward doing some stuff with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So if we take a look at the standings, I thought it was interesting seeing the Ball brothers taking each other on with the Hornets and the Bulls playing during the week. But the Bulls have been pretty impressive. They keep their position in 4th place there.
Wearing the hat. I don't actually have a team in the NBA. Maybe I should choose. But the Bulls, led by Zach Levine, looking really, really nice. They are 4th in the East there. But mind you, we spoke about the Suns. The Warriors keep going about their business. They're 18-3. Steph, short price favourite to be the MVP out there.
Before we deeper into the West, just to finish on the East, we were talking about Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, where they are. They started to move their way up. 2 playoff teams from last year kind of going the other way in the Knicks and the 76ers, kind of really struggling of late as well. Yeah,
Ben Simmons watch. Where's
nothing new. So I think he hasn't played, of course. He's still sitting around, potentially I think he's getting fined, but he's not going to play for them, and they can't find a trade partner currently. They did lose their last one, but they're currently sitting 11-11 at 500. But like I said, in the West, Suns and Warriors kind of, and I guess across the league, kind of putting themselves out there in front of everyone. They've got a 3-game lead on the next closest team in the Nets. from the East. They've got a 4-game lead, of course, on the Jazz, who's in third place in the West. And, even they've got a 3-game lead on Dallas in 4 there. So, they're very clearly kind of putting themselves ahead. Probably a good thing for the Lakers, who've been struggling at 500. Don't have a long way to quickly get themselves into 4th place there. So
they get out of the West. The Lakers, they're probably a little bit underwhelming as it is, but 12-11 early in the year wouldn't surprise me if the Lakers finish top 4.
Yeah, well, Grizzlies maybe a bit of surprise there.
Ja Morant.
500, considering you've got the Nuggets and say the Clippers, they're all below them as well. 2 teams that I believe made playoffs last year as well.
And shout out to Ja Morant. He has the most points in the paint, if you will, on a per game basis this year. A undersized point guard can go up and take it to the rim. That's really cool to see. Obviously, the paint tends to get dominated by taller, stronger, big fellas, and Ja just continues to defy, if you will, the critics. The Memphis Grizzlies cruising along pretty well there at 11-10.
Yeah, but as always, still pretty early in the season. Another 40-odd matches to be played by each team?
More than that. We got...
how long's the season?
82 games.
82 games.
60 games to go.
Yeah, so a lot of basketball still to happen. A lot
to
can
go.
Change.
Yeah.
So that'll finish us up with NBA, and I think we'll touch quickly on the MLB because it was announced today that they couldn't reach an agreement or their talks haven't gone far enough for a potential new EA. So looks like they will go to a player lockout. First time they've had a work stoppage since 94, 95, I believe. Okay. So a long time. We've seen that kind of semi-recently in the NFL. I think the NBA has been pretty good with theirs. I think NHL had a work stoppage for a little while within this decade. So, it's a kind of a big thing with the MLB, with their players, the baseball players, they make fuckloads of money. And potentially I think the league was... happy to do a bit more revenue sharing, happy to share a bit more on the luxury taxes and the scope of deals and the years on the deals. But they obviously couldn't come to agreement, so they potentially will run into a lockout because I believe they're in their off season, of course, because the World Series was finished up a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it'll get resolved before the season starts next year, but by all accounts, MLB will go into a lockdown and we'll see how long that lasts. I don't think it'll get to the point they'll play replacement players. Potentially it'll be like there won't be a season leading
at
into
Keanu Reeves.
exactly, the replacement. I don't think it'll be like the NFL 83, 84, whatever it was, work stoppage and the lockout recently for the NFL. What did they miss? They missed preseason and then they sorted it out early in the season. So
they never tend to last too long, do they?
Yeah, well, exactly. As soon as the television money, if you can't put games on, you can't get TV revenue, and that's where most of the money comes from, and money talks, as we like to say on the Esky.
Especially when it's $14 billion worth of revenue they're trying to split up.
That's in AUDs.
14 billion AUDs, yep.
What's that in USD?
10,
11? Yeah.
It's a lot of money. Wouldn't mind 0.1% of that for a stellar podcast, up-and-coming podcast.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why we want to touch on the MLB. We'll see what happens with that. It's just interesting with, of course, the EAs and how the leagues kind of compete, especially the big four in America, because that does impact the others a little bit, but we'll see what kind of impact that has. Peppy, some soccer. Do you want to start off with the EPL and what's happening, I believe, at Man U?
Yeah, the big story coming out of the football world in the last 7 days, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he got the sack. The writing's been on the wall for a fair time for the Manchester United manager. They started the year well. They were undefeated through 5 games, and then they went and lost 5 of their last 7, including some embarrassing results. And the nail in the coffin was a 4-1 loss at Vicarage Road to Watford. That was their biggest defeat to a newly promoted team since 1989. Michael Carey took the helms for a little bit, and then Ralph Rangnick, he's been announced as the interim manager. He's the former Red Bull Leipzig coach. He will take them through the rest of the season. Next year, there's a lot of speculation who might come through. Pochettino is currently the PSG manager. He's contracted through to 2023. There's a lot of noise. May Man U pay out his compensation? Other guys on the market include Ernesto Valverde. He got sacked by Barca, he's currently uncontracted, so they will just have to deal with him directly if they wanted him to have the job. And then maybe a bigger story, a headline more than anything, is Zinedine Zidane, who just left Real Madrid, long-term coach of Cristiano Ronaldo. I suppose the knock on him is apparently he doesn't speak very good English, and he may have his sights set on coaching France. And if they wanted to go English, maybe Brendan Rodgers, the Leicester.
How far are we from the World Cup? Is that it's not next year, but the year after?
No, it's next year. It's not that far. It's what are we?
Usually
8 months. We're 8 months away. 8 months.
Oh, just my point on Zidane. It's usually too short a time frame for a World Cup squad. They usually want to have a coach that takes them through the qualifiers to then build that squad to then take them into the World Cup. They usually don't change them between then.
Possibly, but you're also talking about a French legend.
True.
So it wouldn't surprise me if Zidane does get that top gig there. The other chat, I suppose, was around Erik ten Hag, who's having a stellar season with Ajax. But it may be, to go from Ajax to Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, it may be too much of a jump. But in the meantime, and there's no ruling out that Ralph Rangnick may not get, he may be the guy going forward and, gets his interim role and may hold on to it. United fans, it all looked hunky-dory a few months ago. They signed Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho from Borussia, an unbelievable young English player, and Rafael Varane, one of the best centre-backs in the world from Real. And in the EPL, they're just not looking too good. They're coming 10th through 13 games on 18 points after starting quite well.
They do take on Arsenal tomorrow morning.
Big matchup.
So Arsenal, of course, have ascended a little bit.
They've been trending in the right direction. The old Gunners, they have been going in the right way.
Some other match results from today. Man City beat Villa. Liverpool got 4-1 against Everton. The Hammers played a draw with Brighton. Chelsea got a win over Watford. Wolves and Burnley played a draw. City and Southampton draw. Leeds United and Palace had, Leeds 1-0. And Newcastle had a draw against Northwich City. Before you scroll down, James, Peps, what's the team on the bottom of the ladder that hasn't had a win so far this season?
Is it Newcastle United?
Yes, it is.
A lot of work to do under the new ownership. Yeah. They'll have a lot of money coming in.
Rebuild.
They are 6 points? 6
points. 6 points out of relegation
zone. Is that 2 wins or is it 3 wins?
2 wins. Two wins. Yeah. But look, a lot of work cut out there from the boys from the Geordie Shore to climb out of the bottom 3 there. But Newcastle United, 14 games in, do not have a win. With about to become under new ownership, apparently from the wealthiest people to ever buy a soccer club. Be interesting to see what happens there. Just going quickly back to Manchester United, whilst it's been very, very, very disappointing in the Premier League, they're actually going pretty good in the Champions League. They did get a win over Villarreal last week. Bayern Munich looking the goods there. They haven't dropped a point. They're looking very good. And I did mention it before, Ajax. They haven't dropped a point either. They are going okay. Monks, if you wouldn't mind chasing up the UEFA Champions League standings with 1 game to go. Essentially, a lot of dead rubbers coming up. We've got a good idea as to who's going through and who is not. Unfortunately, our boys from Moldova, Sheriff Tiraspol, They got done by Real Madrid. They're out. It was a great story while it lasted. Winning their first 2 games there in Group D. But let's go to the top and go through. Man City are through, and PSG are through in Group A. There, only formalities to come. In Group B, Liverpool have been playing some good football, mind you. Mo Salah, a little bit unlucky to not be nominated, I thought, this week in the Ballon d'Or. Lionel Messi taking that out. Yeah. I think Robert Lewandowski may have had a better season, perhaps, than Messi did. Very interesting there in Group B between Porto, Milan and Atletico. Only 1 point separating them, so second spot is up for grabs. Group C, we mentioned Ajax, they're killing it. Sporting Lisbon go through there in second place. Group D is wrapped up. Real Madrid and Inter going through with a valiant effort from Sheriff Tiraspol. They're going to come third. The Moldovans, in their first ever appearance in the Champions League, can hold their heads high. Bayern Munich, my tip to take out the whole thing. They haven't lost. They will go through there. Barcelona do have to worry about this game upcoming with Benfica up on their tail, but you'd imagine the Catalans club gets through there.
Are they playing Bayern? Who they playing for their last match?
That's a good question. Are you going to take that one up?
Because I think I saw some chat about Barcelona worried about what the scoreline may be.
Well, and they should be. They should be.
It is
They
Bayern.
do. So Barca takes on Bayern. Sporting Lisbon will be licking their Portuguese lips. They'll be tasting that Nando's chicken, just going, oh my goodness. It's not even Sporting Lisbon, it's Benfica. But so that's big. That's big. Bayern. Yeah, it is a dead rubber for them. They will finish first regardless. Mm-hmm. But
so you think they rest players or
possibly? Yeah, possibly. Or maybe Lewandowski's going to go out there and say, how many fucking goals do I have to score to get a Ballon d'Or? In the calendar year, Lewandowski, 51 goals from 40 appearances.
Jeez.
On paper, was the best player in football this year. Group F is still kind of interesting. You'd think United go through there. They're on 10 points. And then it's kind of close between Villarreal and Atalanta. There, and then this one is the real interesting one. Group G, Lille out of France and Red Bull Salzburg in Group G, but Sevilla and Wolfsburg aren't out of it. So that's really the only group where there's some kind of speculation, I suppose.
Who Chelsea and Juventus playing? Yeah, it's probably for number 1 seed, I'd say.
Well, it doesn't really matter, and the number 1 seed doesn't really matter that much because you go into. There's the number 1 seeds and the number 2 seeds, but essentially it just goes into a pot and it doesn't really matter that much. But Juventus and Chelsea are through there. So only, a lot of dead rubbers. But yeah, I suppose the big story would be if Barcelona were to miss out going forward. And for mine, Bayern still look very, very good. You can't rule out Liverpool. You can't rule out Ajax. You can't rule out City. Yeah. Be interesting going forward into the knockout games.
PSG only scored 9 goals. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit underwhelming though.
Very, very interesting decision with Messi getting that Ballon d'Or.
Yes.
True.
And that will get us through to the On The Esky final round. We have a quick wrap-up of the UFC. Let's go. Ding, ding.
Yeah, well, like you said, very quick wrap up. Not a huge amount of massive fights to talk about. Melissa Tate losing on her. I think this was a comeback fight. It might have been her second fight back in the UFC in the women's bantamweight division.
Misha,
sorry. Yeah, she
wasn't it Ketlin Vieira, who is kind of a little bit of an unknown. There, she goes up to the 6th rank in the women's bantamweight. You'd kind of think. Who cares? Because there's someone in that division called Amanda Nunes who probably takes care of business for any challenger.
The story was trying to get Tate back into that conversation, but yeah, I think she might be 1-1 back in the UFC since her semi-retirement after giving birth. So the other kind of interesting one, Sean Brady, sorry. Sean Brady.
Like Tom.
Yeah, like Tom. I was just like, it says Brady. Why don't I read it like Bradley? Dickhead. Took on Michael Kessler in middleweight. So he did defeat Michael Kessler. He's up 6 spots into 8, and Kessler drops 3 for himself, which is a good get for Brady in this one. The fight card on the weekend, Rob Font taking on Jersey Aldo. So that's looking pretty good. Jimmy Crute, Aussie boy with the luscious mullet, I believe, at the press conference.
They've all got mullets these days. They all got mullets. The big one, I suppose, the pull out, it is a little bit old news, but Jorge Masvidal having to pull out for his fight against Leon Edwards.
So UFC 269, 2 weeks away, as Peps alludes to there. He had to pull out of his fight on the pay-per-view, sorry. Yeah.
My apologies.
Still the two...
Getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, it's all good. It happens. The 2 title fights still on that card, which is still very juicy. And we'll cover that UFC 269 a bit closer, next week.
Next week, more in depth.
With a couple Aussies / Kiwis on that card as well. F1. I think there's a lot of F1 to talk about. So
before we get that,
go.
Still in the fighting realm. Going back to boxing. Stats.
This is a good throwback.
Yeah.
You know, like in stand-up comedy when they set up a joke and it's like an hour and a half ago, and then they come back to it. This is what
like a Frank the Tank.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to suffer through 2 hours to get an answer.
That's right.
That's it. Yeah. Well, that's it. People are going to have to listen to the whole podcast to find out the info.
And may God have mercy on your soul.
That's it. So I could find 2 Aussies. First one, obviously Costa Zoo. So he held the WBA, WBC, IBF belts. I believe he defended that twice between 2001 and 2003.
There is more belts now, but of course, different organisations.
Yeah. And then the other one, we have to go back to 1952 to 1954. Jimmy Carruthers held the NYSAC and NBA bantamweight belts.
Good on Jimmy Carruthers. He was fighting the local drunk down the pub in those days. But that's very interesting that there's only been two guys to hold
That's it.
unanimous belts before.
Undisputed boxing champion.
As Australians, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, so
that's cool. That's cool going back to, way back early in the podcast there, Monks. I did enjoy that.
Yes. So F1.
Yes.
How we got to where the race was, Bottas got a 3-place penalty, Max got 5. I can't even remember the reasons for these.
I was going to say this is over a week ago.
Yeah, this is gone, but it didn't. In the end of the race, it didn't really matter because by the end of the first lap or by the second lap, Max was already back into P2, so he was chasing Lewis, but Hamilton was too quick throughout the entire race. It was too fast. He led from start to finish. Didn't even lose that position through the pit stops because he was that quick. The biggest story probably from the race in Abu Dhabi was the front left tyres failing. I think in the end we had 4 failures. Bottas had his blowout. Perez...
It was back at Qatar, right?
Qatar. Yep. You are right, Qatar. Abu Dhabi's the one coming up. I was trying to remember which one it was. So, yes, back at Qatar, sorry. Bottas had his fail. I think Norris was close. He was losing pressure, so they brought him in. And then I think one of the Alfa Romeos and then one of the Williams also had failures. There's at least 4 that had... Actually, Bottas was the big one because he was kind of in position for some points. In position for fighting for 3rd place with Perez, but it really took him out and he didn't make it in the top 10, which was good for Alonso because he held on for 3rd place for his first podium, I believe, in close to 100 GPs, which takes us back to some time in like 2014 or 2015. Long time between drinks for Alonso. Mugs, you might want to find the exact time he was back on the podium. Max did get the fastest lap in this race. So both championships end up very close. And if you wouldn't mind as well, Monks, to make you work overtime, bringing up the current standings in the championships and the difference between the two. Because my understanding for this week's race at the Saudi Grand Prix, is this in Saudi Arabia or is this? Yep. Yeah. So this is in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a night race. There's a couple ways for Max to potentially win the championship at this race. But let's first go to the standings. So Max is at 351.5 to Lewis's 343.5. So in total, what's that quick math? 8 points between the two of them.
Yep.
So I think it works out. If Max is first and Lewis is sixth or less, he wins the championship. If Max is second, it's 5 positions essentially. He's got to have 5 positions. Fastest lap adds a point in thereabouts. Potentially Max can win the competition, win the championship this round. If Max doesn't score and Lewis does, he can still potentially win the title back at the final race of the season, making it very, very close. Where's the constructors at while we're looking at standings? Teams, because I think there's also very close with Bottas not scoring in Qatar.
We've got Mercedes at 546.5 and Red Bull at 541.5. Yeah. So it's still flip of a coin between those front two.
Yeah, still very, very close in that, and it'd be interesting if Red Bull wins the Drivers' Championship and then also loses the Constructors. It kind of shows how close this season's been. Another bad day for McLaren and another good day for Ferrari. So I think Ferrari probably got that third space sign up. They do have almost 40 points by the looks of that on top of McLaren. So that's a bit disappointing for Lando and Ricciardo, how they were going. But hey, they're still well clear of all the other teams, and there's definitely going to be there in a fight next year. Hopefully, with some of those regulations to push them into the next echelon, like fight for positions, fight for more podiums as such.
Yep, that's it.
So finish up on Qatar. There's no Qatar race next year because of the World Cup we mentioned earlier for the football or soccer will happen next year. So I think they didn't want to overlap, whatever. But either way, the following year when they come back to Qatar, they're not going to use the dedicated motorsports arena they have been using, which has 3 or 4 different layouts for the circuit because they can change it depending on what corners they want to use. Looks like it'll be a street race through Qatar.
That's interesting to go away from a purpose-built arena to go to a straight race. It would be interesting in Qatar. Yeah, obviously a lot of tall buildings.
I wonder if it's maybe more location-based, getting it into the CBD.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe not directly in CBD, but more closer to that. Maybe potentially getting more people into stands and into crowds, or more people at the event than where they have the current track, which could potentially be a little bit outside of the normal kind of areas of the city. So to finish up, we've got 2 races to go. Saudi Grand Prix is coming up. Really, really close competition. We had talked about Max kind of favouring up for the championship, and Lewis has roared back in. I'm not sure if, James, you can find out about the engine situation at Mercedes. I think there's been some chat that Lewis could potentially take another engine, take his 5 pace grid penalty. Yeah. Considering he's already used his allotment of engines for this season, but if he takes a 5 place grid penalty and it still, gives him such a huge advantage over what Max is doing, does he do it anyway to push that agenda of potentially winning?
Yeah, so earlier on in the week, there was rumours, Marco Helmut from Red Bull was saying that they felt pretty good with the next couple of races, that Mercedes Hamilton's engine wouldn't have the same power as what he's had in the last couple of races.
Because last 2, he's just been so much quicker than everyone. You could see it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you've got any news there, Peps.
No, I can't really find much, although a lot of people are scorning the fact that Lewis Hamilton has had to change his engine so many times. But in terms of the rules and the legality of it, I'm not that sure Also coming from not the biggest F1 aficionado on the table here.
Well, what you're looking at there also, Alonso kind of something coming out. It's like, hey, you only have a set limit you're meant to use through the season. If you break that limit, which they would if they take another engine, the 5th place is not good enough. Send him to the back of the grid, which would be a huge penalty. So they wouldn't do that if that was the case. So,
and I mean, it wouldn't matter too much between teams such as Mercedes and Red Bull, but if you've got Mercedes that's bringing in new engines every other race and they're competing against a lower team that don't have the same budget as Alfa Romeo or as Alpine, then you can understand why Alonso is feeling a little bit dirty about it, because how can he compete when they're playing within the rules because they have to, because it's the rules, and B, because they haven't got the money to spend on rebuilding new engines every other race week.
Or getting freshly built, like brand new ones.
Yeah, that's it.
Straight out of the factory versus a rebuilt one.
Yeah, so I suppose there's the argument that Hamilton sort of just, I wouldn't say cheating his way, but
well, we saw in the last at least the 2 races in the last since he took that engine penalty, just how much quicker it is. Like, it is a significant benefit. So if it's within the rules, that go back to that gamesmanship conversation.
Well, yeah, that's it. That's probably more gamesmanship than anything else. Like, if he can take a new engine, take 5 grid penalties, and still win a race, then
well, if he wins he has to win the next 2 races, and if Max finishes second in both, he would then win the championship by a couple of points. Like, it's make or break for him currently. So if it's within the rules, why wouldn't you potentially to get your 8th championship? But
that's it. Well, I mean, it's an interesting storyline. Like, it's obviously a win now mentality. What does that mean next year with all the regulations, new cap on spending?
Everything changes, I think, next year.
Everything changes.
Aero, wheels, tires, everything's different. So everything could flip on its head.
Yeah, that's it. So
you think most of the big teams that have invested heavily will have invested heavily in next season, based on under their cap, of course. But it's I don't think it'll change that significantly from where it is now. I think it might close the gap a little bit more to what did we see? I think we saw Lewis and Max lap, 15 or 16 of the competitors have a lap down on everyone. Maybe it'll be closer where most of the teams can stay on the lead lap and be more competitive in the racing. Who knows? We'll have to see. But it's really firming up to be a great end to the championship that hadn't been very close in recent years.
No, it's the closest that I remember the last few years.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. And, will we have a defined champion by the end of this race? I don't think so. It wouldn't surprise me if Max and Lewis are 1-2 in some order again. And we'll have to go to the final race of the season. Where is that, Monks?
Jeez,
Emirates, isn't it?
Yes.
So we've got the Saudi one, and then we go to Emirates. Okay, cool.
I'm learning.
Yeah. So the final kind of sad news during the week. So Frank Williams did pass away, F1 legend. I'm not sure if you got some stats there, Pepe, but well loved throughout the paddock. Of course, knighted for his achievements throughout the sport.
Sir Frank Williams.
Yeah, Sir Francis Williams. He was the founder of the Williams team.
Of course.
And he was pretty much the boss from 1977 until 2020. So in the game for just about 50 years. In that period, he won 9 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships as a boss,
as a principal, yes,
of Williams there, and he's passed away peacefully at the age of 79 in the last week. So Vale Frank Williams, a legend of motor racing.
Yeah, and loved in F1, especially of course British motor racing. He knows all the British boys coming through. Being head of Williams, having George Russell there, but also working with Lando and Lewis himself, and even Nico Rosberg. Like, everyone kind of knew Frank Williams, Sir Frank Williams, as you will, throughout the sport. So, heavy hearts and a big loss. A lot of outpouring on social media from the F1 community during the week for his passing.
Had an accident himself in the 1980s, so was actually wheelchair bound since 1986. So definitely take my hat off to anyone that was strong enough to stay mentally sound through such a abhorrent accident. So yes, spent the last 35 years of his life wheelchair bound. So Vale to Frank Williams.
And especially in a sport like motor racing, where of course he would have loved motor racing and driving himself. To end up that kind of accidents. Yeah,
well, that's it. Because I think he was initially after the accident, he was a tetraplegic, so everything were paralyzed from the neck down, and then I think he was able to get some mobility back in his arms.
One arm. Horrible, but a legend of the sport. So he'll be missed. Shout out to Frank Williams and thoughts with his family.
Yep. So to finish off the podcast, some final bit of motor racing news or events coming up. Australia's biggest racing event, the Bathurst 1000, our Spa, our Le Mans, if you will, is taking place over the weekend. I believe the Generation 3 cars will be revealed tomorrow morning. So that's the new Mustangs and Camaro for the future of supercars. So again, kind of doing what F1's doing with new regulations and new designs. They're very much going less aero, more like production cars, which makes the cars move around a bit more skittish, more high competitive racing. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But the Bathurst, the main races on Sunday, should run between 6 and 7 hours, 1,000 kilometres. It's a big, long race. A lot of well-known superstars of Australian motor racing, of course, competed there. Won many championships. It is the biggest motor sport event for Australians' calendar. So check that out. And it's just quite an interesting sport, especially if you like F1, you like NASCAR, combine the two, you got supercars. So there you go for all our international listeners.
Went for a hot lap in the Subaru Forester actually back in May. Went up there for Mitch Bruce's wedding and took the boys for a quick lap. That hill is very steep. The TV,
going down the mountain.
The TV does not do it justice, just how steep that hill is. So to imagine... after being there, in the flesh 6 months ago and watching, the boys fly down that hill, it is very steep.
Yeah, averaging over 100 kilometres an hour.
And it's tight. It's very tight. It's very tight.
Wall on either side. So.
Yeah, the TV does not do it justice.
Yeah. Already, because they've done 3 practice sessions, I think, today, then have another one tomorrow with a potential qualifying with final top shootout on Saturday. Yeah, already had a bunch of guys go into the wall and a lot of damaged car, especially the Coca-Cola 96 that hit the wall in P2 today. So, yeah, if you like cars that run into each other and bump and scrape, it is a very interesting and entertaining motorsport.
And that will wrap up the podcast for this evening. Thank you very much to anyone that has lasted through 3 hours of our dribble. It was a big one for us, obviously having last weekend off. And how about this, boys? Next week, we've got the Ashes. We've got UFC 269. We've obviously got the NFL coming to the pointy end of the year. We've got obviously the F1 wrapping up, the Champions League getting to the pointy end.
India, New Zealand.
New Zealand, second test starts tomorrow. There's plenty to talk about, as always. If you do like this content, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram. And we will see you next week. Thank you if you are staying with us through this much content. We enjoy it. It's fun to have a few beers with the lads and talk some dribble about sport and, general life and whatnot.
Very much so. Thank you, lads. Thank you, boys, for coming out. We'll see you all next week.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.